So I'm not overly worried this was some great plot by the Iranians, because they couldn't even think of this.
Okay.
And I take them very seriously. And given the magnitude of this failure, the Secret Service's Office of Professional Responsibility is reviewing the actions and decision-making of Secret Service personnel in the lead-up to and on the day of the attack. If this investigation reveals that Secret Service employees violated agency protocols, those employees will be held accountable to our disciplinary process. With respect to congressional investigations and requests for information, I instructed my staff to provide full cooperation and respond expeditiously on a continuing basis to ensure you have the information you need to conduct your critical oversight. In my testimony before you today, I will provide details on the Secret Service's advanced security planning for the Butler Farm Show site. Facts as we know them regarding the incident itself, known breakdowns in executing the security plan, and corrective actions that the agency is taking to ensure that nothing like this happens again. But I do not believe that inadequate time to plan for this event was a factor in the failure. As you saw in my written statement, I am prepared to provide an overview of the security planning leading up to and during the July 13th attack. However, I would like to point out that based on what I know right now, neither the Secret Service counter-sniper teams nor members of the former president's security detail had any knowledge that there was a man on the roof of the AGR building with a firearm. It is my understanding those personnel were not aware the assailant had a firearm until they heard gunshots. Prior to that, they were operating with the knowledge that local law enforcement was working an issue of a suspicious individual prior to the shots being fired. I regret that information was not passed to Congress and the public sooner with greater frequency. And I fear this lack of information has given rise to multiple false and dangerous conspiracy theories about what took place that day. And I want to debunk these theories. Let me address one conspiracy directly. The Secret Service counter-sniper neutralized the assailant within seconds after the assailant fired his weapon. That counter-sniper had full discretion to use deadly force to stop an attacker and did not need to seek authorization to fire. I am immensely proud of the selfless dedication of our employees to the mission. Every day, across the globe, the men and women answer the call to protect our nation's leaders, and the standard is no fail for a reason. During our current high operational tempo, I want and I need to ensure that the Secret Service workforce are uplifted so they can focus on carrying out the mission. They have my full support, and I'm confident in their abilities to ensure the safety and security of the people we protect. They are worthy of trust and confidence, and they deserve your support as well as the support of the American people. Chairman Peters, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Paul, Ranking Member Graham, and members of the committees, thank you for the opportunity to testify at this joint hearing. I will submit the remainder of my statement for the record, and I will answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. O. Our second witness is Paul Abate. Mr. Abate is the Deputy Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation at the Department of Justice. In this role, Deputy Director Abate oversees all FBI domestic and international investigative and intelligence activities. Prior to his appointment as Deputy Director, he has had a distinguished 3 decades within the FBI leading counterterrorism efforts, and most recently as the Associate Deputy Director of the FBI, where he's responsible for the management of all FBI personnel, budget, administration, as well as infrastructure. Mr. Abate, thank you for appearing before the committee here today. You are recognized for your opening remarks.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chairman Peters and Durbin, Ranking Members Paul and Graham, and distinguished members of the committee. It is a privilege to appear before you today to discuss the FBI's investigation of the attempted assassination of former President Trump on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania.
I suck.
Before going further, I want to again offer my and our
slipped.
condolences to the victims of this heinous attack, to the family and loved ones of heroic firefighter and father Corey Comparator, to Mr. Dutch, to Mr. Koppenhaver, who continue to recover, and to former President Trump, who was also struck by a bullet fired from the shooter's rifle. Our thoughts and prayers are with each of them and their families and loved ones.
I don't pray, but I still care about everyone.
The FBI field office in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Yeesh.
received notification of the assassination attempt and responded to the scene immediately with a surge of resources, quickly moving forward on the investigation. From the outset, the FBI has been investigating this attack as an assassination attempt and an act of domestic terrorism. Our team continues to conduct a full, thorough, and objective investigation, and will continue to follow all leads and avenues of investigation to logical conclusion, leaving no stone unturned. While it's not typical to provide details of an ongoing investigation, this, as we all know, is an extraordinarily tragic set of circumstances of the utmost
to hear those
national
words.
importance, making it essential
At least someone acknowledged
to inform
it.
the American public and Congress what is known right now with full transparency.
Why can I
The
not make
investigation
your
remains
account right
focused,
now?
of course, on determining motive, identifying any potential co-conspirators or others with knowledge of the attack, and building out a timeline of shooter Thomas Crook's actions in advance of and during the attack. Thus far,
Hi, I switch games back and forth a little bit much, so I forgot how to play again. Hi.
though absolutely nothing has been ruled out, the investigation has not identified a motive, nor any co-conspirators or others.
Hey, Rope. How are you feeling? You're awesome, by the way.
With advanced knowledge.
We're watching a day-old Senate hearing because I found it remarkably inappropriate that the feds were being told to disclose information about an active investigation while trying to reduce harm to people in a situation where people have been directly harmed already. I found it very obscure that people were, lambasting them for withholding in a place and time when it is actually really important to, keep people fucking safe and reduce the fucking operational security is reducing fucking suffering and reducing the likelihood of harm to others. I don't give a fuck who anybody is. I don't want anybody getting fucking hurt. So, we're watching this because I found the senator to be remarkably inappropriate with the way they carried themselves, to be galvanizing and emotional for no reason, and it was very strange as to why they tried to carry themselves like this, knowing full well that we've already been critical of California's representation in the past when they pushed to talk about things in the public in pantomime, allowing the Zodiac person to be informed about an active investigation's steps and the current evidence recorded, which resulted in the lack of that evidence being seen to correlate to further harm that would have befallen people. So even other information or evidence got obscured because some public local official decided to act hard and be a pick-me about tell me in front of everybody, and it caused harm to continue. You know? And we're not for that, so if I'm pissy, desperately need context, so I can't be an asshole for nothing.
To date, the FBI team has conducted more than 460 interviews, executed
We're dug in for a few hours.
search warrants, including at the shooter's residence, and seized electronic media to include phones, laptops, hard drives, and thumb drives. Legal process has been issued to dozens of companies, and we've received more than 2,000 tips from the public. The full resources of the FBI have been brought to bear in furtherance of the investigation. Agents, analysts, professional staff, experts. I've personally visited the site of this horrific attack and seen firsthand the work of FBI Pittsburgh and our partners on the front line, and want to thank all involved for their ongoing and tireless efforts to get the answers that we need and to deliver justice. Specialized resources deployed included evidence response teams, victim services specialists, laboratory and operational technology division resources to process physical and digital evidence, a shooting reconstruction team. Additionally, our explosive experts have analyzed the 3 IEDs recovered, 2 from the shooter's vehicle, 1 from the family residence. And our behavioral analysis unit, importantly, is helping to build a profile of the shooter to include his mental state. Next, I want to provide a brief highlighted overview of the timeline that has been established to date through witness interviews and other information. Again, this is our understanding at present and is subject to change and further refinement as more facts are collected. On July 3rd, the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania was announced. On July 6th, the shooter registered to attend the rally and performed a search for, quote, how far was Oswald from Kennedy? On July 7th, the shooter traveled from his home to the Butler Farm Show grounds and remained there for approximately 20 minutes. We assessed this show's advanced planning and reconnaissance on his part. On July 12th, the shooter traveled from his home to the Clairton Sportsman Club, where he practiced shooting. On the morning of July 13th, at approximately 10 a.m., the shooter returned to the farm show grounds and remained there for about 70 minutes before returning home again. At approximately 1:30 p.m., while at the residence, the shooter's father gave him a rifle for the purpose he believed of going back to the Sportsman Club. About 25 minutes later, the shooter purchased ammunition while en route to the Butler Farm Show grounds. The subject then arrived at the scene and was moving around the farm show grounds close to the American Glass Research AGR building, from which he ultimately committed the attack. Shortly thereafter, at approximately 3:51 p.m., the shooter flew a drone approximately 200 yards from the farm show grounds for about 11 minutes. The drone and controller were later found in the subject's car. Analysis has not revealed any photos or video taken by the drone, but we can confirm that he was live streaming at the time and would have been able to view it on his controller. The first reported sighting of the shooter by local law enforcement was at approximately 4:26 p.m. At approximately 5:10 p.m., the shooter was again identified by local law enforcement as a suspicious person around the AGR building. And at approximately 5:14 p.m., a local SWAT operator took a photo of the shooter.
Oops.
At about 5:32 p.m.,
FL.
local SWAT observed the shooter next to the AGR
Lol,
building,
oops. Whatever.
using his phone, browsing news sites, and with a rangefinder. At approximately 5:38 p.m., the photo of the shooter taken earlier was sent to local SWAT operators in a text message group. Subsequently, approximately 25 minutes prior to the shooting, the U.S. Secret Service command post was notified of a suspicious person. Officers lost sight of the subject from approximately 6:02 p.m. to 6:08 p.m., but continued to communicate with each other in an attempt to locate him. Recently discovered video from a local business shows the shooter pulling himself up onto the AGR building rooftop at approximately 6:06 p.m. And at approximately 6:08 p.m., the subject was observed on the roof by local law enforcement. At approximately 6:11 p.m., a local police officer was lifted to the roof by another officer, saw the shooter, and radioed
Timing?
that he was
Oh,
armed
yay.
with, quote, a long gun. Within approximately the next 30 seconds, the shots were fired. The evidence recovery team found 8 shell casings
tagged.
at the scene next to the shooter's body. We believe that the shooter, fired 8 rounds. While the investigation has not determined motive, the investigative team continues to review information from legal returns, including online
Res?
and social
I
media
do.
accounts.
Sick.
Something just very recently uncovered that I want to share is a social media account which is believed to be associated with the shooter in about the 2019-2020 timeframe. There were over 700 comments posted from this account. Some of these comments, if ultimately attributable to the shooter, appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes, to espouse political violence, and are described as extreme in nature. While the investigative team is still working to verify this account to determine if it did in fact belong to the shooter, we believe it important to share and note it today.
It's odd if we're not sure to bring it up. It's odd. But context. They're being pressed heavily by the senators to release information, and again, what they release then has to be, if I'm right, they could be deceitful outright to the public and to their suspects. I think to the Senate, they have to be withholding or pointed with their statements. So, we'll see. But I do again find it irresponsible to have... I'm sorry, I still look at it as an event where the blood is still warm, and I will never be content when harm is being done to others, so... I'm gonna be bitchy.
Particularly given the general absence of other information to date from social media and other sources of information that reflect on the shooter's potential motive and mindset. These are the facts, in part, that the investigation has revealed to date. While the shooter is dead, our work is very much ongoing and urgent. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any and all questions.
Thank you, Mr. Abate. We'll now proceed. Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Graham will ask the first 2 questions. I will then ask question Ranking Member Paul, and then after that, we will alternate between members of the judiciary, recognized by Chairman Durbin, and members of the Homeland Security Committee, recognized by me. With that, Senator Durbin, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Senator Peters. I would like to begin by making a statement that it's not in the form of a question, and you'll understand why when I say it. In 20 days, we're going to start the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. I have been briefed by the law enforcement agencies.
Thank you.
Plans
Invulnerability
for
was
security
essential.
for that event. Tens of thousands of people will be there, including some of the highest-ranking politicians in the United States. I trust that both of your agencies can answer in the affirmative if I ask you whether you're actively engaged in working with the development of security plan, taking into consideration the lessons of July 13th.
Senator, that is 100% yes from the Secret Service.
Yes, from the FBI as well. So we've been working on this for well over a year in preparation.
I'm not going to ask for details for obvious reasons, but I do want to ask a question about the Secret Service.
All right, Durbin. Not pissing me off as of yet. Also, Durbin isn't why I was like miffed anywho's like later on in it. I don't need fire right now. I mean, I want fire. Firecracker? I think maybe. Spinning, spinning, spinning. Beyblades? You wanna take Beyblades? You wanna take stunning, stunning day Beyblades? So I force myself to do something at every little downtime. Okay, cool. Sick. Bless you, by the way.
Staffing. Congress has nearly doubled the budget for the Secret Service over the last 10 years, from $1.8 billion in fiscal year 2014 to $3 billion in fiscal year 2024. Despite this large increase in funding, the number of agents in protective operations has fallen from 4,027 to 3,671 during that same time period, an approximate 9% reduction. Acting Director Rowe, what accounts for protective operations losing 356 agents over the past 10 years?
So, Senator, with respect to where we are today on staffing, and then I'll address the 10-year where we were. In this year alone, we are going to end the year on the positive of 200 plus agents. That's the first time in a number of years that we've been able to do that. Part of that was gaining some efficiencies in our hiring process. But what I want to re-emphasize is that we have not dropped standards. Only 2% of every applicant actually makes it through the hiring process. We are filling our classes at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and we are doing this ramp up as part of what lies ahead of us with the LA Olympics in 2028. With respect to what has happened in years prior, this is a difficult and challenging job, being a Secret Service agent. Living your life by somebody else's schedule, constantly away from your family, constantly having to meet increased operational and investigative demands, which we gladly do, but it's not for everyone. And I think there are times where people have to make tough choices and they decide to leave the agency. But that doesn't mean that they were any less of an agent or that they weren't committed to the mission, because we are all committed to being patriots and serving our country and protecting our nation's highest leaders. I think there was a variety of factors. Some of it was the pandemic. Some of it was the economy or other opportunities. We have people that are very skilled in cyber that often leave the job. Some of the protective skills that they acquire are also in demand in the private sector. But some of the mechanisms that we put in place just in the last year is also retaining our workforce. And that's what we are focused on right now.
Government Accountability Office has determined that restaffing from these losses have been slowed due to a number of factors, including the years-long background checks for prospective agents and the assignments agents must work through before being assigned to protection. Given these constraints, what steps have you taken to improve recruitment?
So we're actually putting out targeted recruitment opportunities. So we've just recently put it out for within our uniform division for our counter sniper unit, our hazardous agent medical emergency response unit, our counter assault team on the special agent side. So we're actually trying to gather the best and the brightest. And I will tell you that we are having great success with a lot of these vacancies. But what I want to reiterate is that, for example, on the counter assault,
underfunded and lambasted
vacancy, we had 700 applicants that applied for this. Really, what we will glean after they make it through the process, and they have to be able to hold a top secret SCI clearance. If we realize 15 out of that tranche, that's a 2% pass rate. So it is very competitive, and we are trying to make sure that we are getting the best and the brightest without dropping standards.
One last question for either one of you. What is the purpose of a rangefinder? And once this assassin was identified as using a rangefinder, wasn't that proof positive that he was a dangerous individual?
So I'll say, Senator, that obviously somebody is trying to determine where they are in proximity to a location, a fixed location. I'll defer to my colleague.
You
here,
can also have rangefinders in civil engineering.
Sports
so
related. I thought I'd read that it was a golf rangefinder. Nonetheless, it still would have provided him the ability to provide the distance that he was away from his intended target.
Wasn't that enough?
As far as raising suspicion?
Yes.
I think he was identified as being suspicious by local law enforcement.
And nothing happened.
Well, I know that local law enforcement...
TLDR, local law enforcement did not relay the information in a efficacious way to Secret Service. Oh, tell me about it.
Enforcement was attempting to locate...
Also, hello, dear and lovely hot sauce. We found a copy of the hearing from yesterday. I think that the senator was being very inappropriate at a later point in this video. You'll see what I mean. They're one of those that's demanding that they release information about an investigation to the public, when to do so could blow their operational security and allow someone who's causing harm to continue causing harm. And I can't get behind that, so, you know, we're staring at that. And before I run off in a tear, because of a moment that I saw later, we're getting the context of the whole of this. So, welcome to a Senate hearing. Senate hearing and Sekiro. Get cozy.
Hate him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm making plant-based tendies right now, so I'm just saying. I'm already on that get cozy train, cuz we're gonna have fucking tendies. It'll be tasty.
Thank you, Member Graham.
Thank you. Let's go back to the
It'll be tasty like that alliteration. God damn it.
resources.
Bite me.
Do you need more money?
Senator, there isn't a single branch,
Can I have more
agency
money?
in the executive branch that that needs more money. Everyone would take more resources. We've had a great relationship with the Department of Homeland Security, the Office of Management and Budget.
Do you feel constrained to ask for more resources?
You
things
are
like that?
cozy.
No, sir, we
You're a
don't.
homie,
And
homie.
actually, we have a great relationship with our appropriators and obviously the authorizing committees, and they have always looked out for the Secret Service.
So I would encourage you to think big when it comes to resourcing the department in light of what happened here. At the time of the shooting, the Iranians were threatening high-level American officials, including President Trump, right?
Senator, it's widely
Am I
known.
right, FBI?
Yes, Senator. That's 100%
Did that
correct.
factor into the security footprint?
So, Senator, what I will say is that it is widely known that the
Mhm.
Iranians do not like us. I would refer you to the
Hi,
national.
Dad.
Not that they don't
I'm
like us, they
also-
threaten to kill certain people and they name them.
Hello, Dad. My name is also Dad Joke. First name Dad, last name Joke. Always with the punnies, honeys.
Correct, sir. But I can't publicly.
It's not like, I hate America, I'm going to kill these three guys.
Right. I cannot publicly comment, sir, on.
Well, they public.
They say some, the senators are saying some galvanizing stuff. I want you to just look very hard. Know that this is a Senate hearing and that you were watching a member of the Federal Bureau of Investigation be spoken to during a Senate hearing in which the FBI is not allowed to easily negotiate around withholding information for operational security to protect the public.
Comment.
This should have been closed. It should have been closed. This being in the open is pantomiming. They are posturing. It is not efficacious. This is bullshit.
On it. I mean, it's not
But,
what.
Senator, what I'm trying to say is I cannot publicly.
Oh, and Senator Graham, memory serving, is aware of this. So Senator Graham isn't contributing to the bullshit. But you'll see what's happening.
Comment
Buckle
on
up.
what intelligence, but I can assure you that we do a threat-based protective model.
I'd like to have that model rebutted to the committee.
That
Could you do that?
makes it less
sir.
efficacious,
Could you
actually.
also give us
So
the protocols that are in place to secure a site like this?
not in public, Dad.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. One, the protective detail around President Trump, I know them all very well. They're brave men and women. And these questions is not to belittle anybody. They're trying to find out how the system fails so badly. You say you're not reluctant to ask for more money. What do we need to do to make it easier to hire people without lowering our standards? I mean, I know it's a hard job. Can we do anything to help you?
So I think we're willing to take that back, sir.
Oh.
I think we're working on our time to hire. We've
Well, if you had more
Oh,
people,
you know
had
how
more
to do
time off.
highbrow snipes.
That's true, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
well, let's get more people, more time off. These are tough jobs. I mean, people in this committee know.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know how they hold a family together doing what they're doing. It's the military really on steroids. The encrypted app. Paul, can you tell us about these apps? Have they been broken into? The guy had some apps that were encrypted.
I think we've experienced a range of returns on this. Some of the applications that he was using online were encrypted in nature. Some of the email accounts
Have we
that
broken into them?
We've received returns. There are some that we have not been able to get information back because of their encrypted nature.
Is there any way to solve that problem?
Sir, Senator, we've talked about this before. We need a solution that provides lawful access to law
So
enforcement.
you're telling me the guy that took 8 shots at the president, former president, has apps that we can't get into that may, if you could get into, reveal some relevant information?
That is correct.
Okay, so again, why does having this I ask you as just a little quandary, why does having this conversation in public put at risk the operational security of this investigation and the public, who they are trying to protect? Also, you should not just be able to break into anything. You do have to have legal means to do so. This is all reasonable that you should not be able to just arbitrarily break into things. There should be a legal process. Because if you bring up the wrong person's deets in a Senate hearing, posturing and pantomiming around, you put people at risk. This is the United States Senate. They fucking will be leveraged for transvestigation in 10 seconds. Swear to fuck. Watch it.
So if he were talking to some foreign power, and I don't think any foreign power would hire this guy, by the way. So I'm not overly worried this was some great plot by the Iranians, because they couldn't even think of this. However, there could come a day where something like this is very important. How do we solve this problem?
Senator, as we've been saying, we need a solution that provides lawful access where when we go to
So you're telling me, I agree with you, I'm not blaming you. We have encrypted apps of an assassin, a murderer, and we can't get into them all these days after. That needs to be fixed, folks. I'm all for privacy, but to a point. What if, in the future,
you're asking for something that is fundamentally impossible, Mr. Graham? May the Honorable Senator please wait for a subject matter expert, and please shut their inaccurateness about this fucking stance before they start sowing discourse that is beyond a rollback in fucking consideration of what the fuck we as a people need. When you can't encrypt information, people can just start doxing each other and then impersonating each other, and then the amount of fucking identity thefts are already wild. Do you want to make it harder, honey? Okay, good. It's not your data. You can't make the choice to make it more open. That's also what you get for letting the corporate takeover of the United States happen, Mr. Graham. So may the Honorable Sir please huff it.
somebody's using these apps to communicate with a foreign power? I think we need to know these things. We need to know them in real time. So lessons learned is that everything failed. Correct?
That is fucking impossible. I'm sorry. You will have to always look at that as an aggravator after the fact. You will always recover if they were after the fact. You have no ability to do such because the progression of technology has left you behind.
Corrective action.
Unless you're gonna fucking fund the public use of fucking quantum technologies. Pay IBM out. I don't know.
It seems to me you need more money and more people.
It's when you don't know what the more money and more people part is true. Okay, no. If that was a fucking pivot for Mr. Graham to bring up the you need more money and more people, valid. But the violation of privacy, no. This could be done legally and above board, but you have to have it processed. What is the crux of this happening? In their point later, that there was a lack of communication between local law enforcement and the Secret Service. So what the fuck is the fucking problem then? You need a fucking better means of communication for local law enforcement and the fucking Secret Service. At no point do the fucking feds need to have such a hard fucking time getting in touch with people that have information that's relevant to them, and should no fucking point did anyone need to fucking frustrate and clusterfuck up the means of communication to the fucking feds and make it to where they had to filter it so goddamn much. They should be able to take that fucking report from anyone, but there isn't the fucking resource. And you know what? If local law enforcement's gonna get fucking military fucking equipment, why the fuck can't like federal law enforcement get a fucking enough people to answer fucking phone calls? God damn, bro. Like, why the fuck is it that the local cops can afford military equipment, but the fucking federal cops can't afford people to answer phone calls? Pay them. But don't think you're gonna break encryption doing it. That's ignorant, negligent, and not even fucking efficacious. Also, do you know how much media is posted to YouTube in a day? You can't fucking filter it. Do you know how many messages get posted a day? More than fucking that. You honestly have no fucking chance outside to use it as a fucking aggravator. Holy shit cakes, cousin. Someone find me some gaming journalism to laugh at really quick.
Accountability. At the end of the day, how many people do you think will be relieved of their duties, Mr. Rowe, because of this?
Senator, I publicly cannot, and I cannot weigh in on that right now, right? It has to be a fair and neutral
Absolutely.
process.
From
right?
a fair point of view, would you say this is a major system failure at every turn, and those in charge of the system in question not only was it embarrassing, they failed.
So, Senator, again, if there were policy violations, those individuals will be held accountable and they will be subject
Just send
to our
us the
table of
policies
penalties.
if you could.
Yes, sir, we will. But they will be held to our table of penalties, which will include up to termination.
Thank you.
Director Rowe, in your testimony here today, as well as in your written testimony, you said very, very clearly that you can't defend why that building with with the shooter on top of it was not better covered. You were very clear. You cannot defend that. So my question to you is, my understanding is that there's a detailed site survey that is done prior to an event to identify potential threat points. So talk to me about that site survey. I'm sure you've had a chance to look at it now after action. And how did that site survey get approved?
Vess, you're unfortunately right. Good job. People do want to obliterate privacy laws. It's a confluence of things. We're going to be watching a fire hose of bullshit go off. Not even just falsehoods, but a fire hose of bullshit, in which people are going to be challenging privacy laws and operational security. They're going to be pantomiming about trying to make they're posturing in public. That's it. It's nothing more than it's like that is the amount of heft of risk they are posing and holding above people. And furthermore, in addition to just bringing all that extra risk to peeps, that, like, I'm just pressing that they are putting people at risk by acting this way, not the ones that have spoken, the ones that's going to speak. Privacy Law McGee over there is actually contributing to that now, so that's dirty. We need subject matter experts to intervene in policy, and we need those subject matter experts to be vetted by international body. There is no fucking reason that we do not have international body vetting our public, like consistently acting as a vetting body for subject matter experts before policy gets brought upon the people of this nation, where it is so hard to get proper fucking rollback, especially of harmful policy. That needs to stop. This has to stop. The EU and China have better policy for social issues in this capacity. Why don't we defer to fucking frameworks that are a bare minimum? Holy titty. Hello, love. How are you?
It's so clear that that was a major threat from that building.
Thank you, Senator. So our Pittsburgh field office did the advance. During that advance, not only were they discussing amongst themselves about mitigating the line of sight, but also they were discussing with other agencies that were supporting it. Our counter snipers met with their counterparts. The team lead and team lead met. They walked the site. They identified the AGR building. And if I may, Senator, if I could point out something right now, if I may, and we will place this for the record. But this is the point of view. This is from the second floor of the AGR building. This point of view is the point of view where the counter sniper team locally was posted.
For the sake of solidarity, I had to engage some trauma earlier, had a shutdown, and I'm chilling. Less verbal than usually, but honestly, I'm having a good time just to be here with people I enjoy and also watching some shit that I'm into, playing a game that I dig. So thank you for the company, and I appreciate you oodles, and I hope you know that you're loved here no matter what. And yeah, that's it. I forgot how to play the game because I keep changing games. Apparently, when I have to engage parts of my trauma, I stop talking and I just shut down. I don't stop thinking, I don't stop remembering, I just externally shut down while I begin to think a lot faster and a lot heavier on the inside. I learned that, like, with repetitious consideration today. So I'm trying to learn how to better deal with that. A thing that got recommended to me is tapping something on the left and right side of my body, respectively. I tend to flap my legs all the time, so I'm always usually, like, gyrating my ass cheeks left to right in different order. So, like, one goes up, the other goes down, but then I find, like, a nice frequency where I'm always, like, pretty stable, because doing it exactly isn't precise and you're gonna have, like, weird bobbling. But if you do it appropriately enough, you can, like, find a way where your upper body generally stays still and you're still moving a shitload, and you get to attenuate a lot of the force that you're throwing around to soothe yourself. And that's what I've been doing, but I was told to also consider tapping my chest and stuff. So yeah, that's my day. I learned coping skills. I also had a shutdown, and I also entirely couldn't stop as my heart began to race. But I learned tools. Yo. My DBT person says I'm not able to start that yet, so I'm doing baby steps. Not baby steps as in to be demeaning to myself, but baby steps as in it's a manageable portion that isn't expecting me to do something unreasonable with a framework that I don't actively have, and is introducing it to me in a meaningful place and time where it's not booking too much. TLDRs. So, to learning, to growth, and to overcoming what negligent motherfuckers contribute to. Let's get it, and let's watch some negligent motherfuckers be negligent. Again, I find it really improper that the Senate's abusing their ability to force the FBI to be very forthcoming in a public fashion about the direct harm or about a risk of harm to others that could put it at a point where they might be at further risk, especially by pantomiming and pantomiming senators that go about just trying to act for optics and do something in public for a spectacle and not really a good outcome. We went to the beginning so I could get context, and I'm now unsure if Senator Graham is posturing to try to place that, well, the feds need a lot of hires, 2025 it, or the feds need a lot of hires and money. Please just give them resources, whatever they need. Because in one capacity, you can see people pumping in resources to try to break cryptography, but that won't happen. They're gonna have to outlaw fucking, like, the use of the internet and have an intranet exclusive to the states. They're going to have to do precisely what they use to racialize and foment hate against China. Also, hi, if anyone from the United States government's watching this, please arrest Greg Abbott. Thank you. Yeah, I have Tindies. I have plant-based Tindies in the oven, so I need to go grab those really quick.
The gold arrow indicates where the shooter fired from. Looking left.
No, Greg Abbott is the governor of Texas, and I think he should be arrested for human rights violations immediately.
Why was the assailant not seen? When we were told that building was going to be covered, that there had been a face-to-face that afternoon, that our team leads met, this was the view. Let me show you another view, Senator.
Hold on.
This view is a reenactment by one of my agents. Laying flat. There was a 5-inch rise on the middle of that roof. The assailant would have had to present his bore over that to get his shot off. The view underneath reflects the perspective that he would have had. Again, I call your attention back to the first exhibit if they'd have looked left. Let me see. This is what our counter sniper team saw. Shooter, no elbows. You barely make out the crown of his head. Below it, the assailant up prone. And let me just tell you, our counter sniper, this individual, I know him. I consider him a friend. He has covered me operationally in conflict zones. And when I did my time on the president's detail, he exemplifies the courage, the skill, and the ability to respond under great stress in such short time to neutralize the threat and prevent further loss of life. Getting back to your question, Senator, these were discussions that were had between the Pittsburgh field office, the local counterparts, and everyone supporting that visit that day. And that's why when I laid in that position, I could not, and I will not, and I cannot understand why there was not better coverage, or at least somebody looking at that roof line when that's where they were posted.
Oh, if you want a TLDR, the senators are indeed using this as a point to posture, When we are aware from later on in this, local law enforcement was unable to relay the pertinent information to the Secret Service. Local law enforcement was not able to relay pertinent information to the Secret Service regarding this. Local law enforcement was not able to relay pertinent information to the Secret Service. Okay, cool. I'm glad that I have made that fucking clear.
Director Rowe, the Secret Service, state and local law enforcement were on multiple communication channels, is my understanding, during that time. And as a result,
Federal authorities, when they received information, were able to proceed. Local law enforcement did not provide meaningful information to federal law enforcement in reasonable time for them to take any meaningful action to prevent loss of life and grievous bodily injury. Local law enforcement held information that prevented federal law enforcement from abating grievous bodily harm and loss of fucking life.
all local law enforcement was only able to call in to a state command center that was then relayed from the Secret Service.
You're going to hear a lot more context soon. Thank you, Senator Peters. Thank you, the Honorable Senator Peters, for summarizing what the fuck I'm getting at. Appreciate. Like, yeah. Like the cut of your jib. Keep talking.
A recurring issue in emergency situations that we're finding with the federal government, that there's not a seamless way to communicate, particularly if you're relying on local law enforcement to deal with what was clearly a major vulnerability. Local law enforcement in Butler told my staff that they had no way of communicating directly with the Secret Service. And if I listened to Mr. Bates saying there was about a 30 seconds between when the local law enforcement reported that there was a man on the roof with a gun, 30 seconds, if it's communicated directly to a counter sniper team, would that be enough time to react prior to the firing of those shots?
Senator, if we'd had that information, they would have been able to address it more quickly. It appears that that information was stuck or siloed in that state and local channel. I will tell you, though, that there were our tactical elements did
A bitch loves feeling vindicated. BRB attendees.
have, not only did they have embeds from Butler County ESU with them.
Nope, I did not make it myself, but if you want to practice making cute crochet thingies for me, I will take them into my heart and house and love them with all my heart. How are you doing today? We're watching a Senate hearing where we have already TLDR'd that state and local law enforcement did not relay pertinent information to federal law enforcement that would have allowed them to take meaningful action to prevent it would have allowed them to prevent loss of life and grievous bodily harm. Because of state law enforcement not being able to relay information to federal law enforcement in a meaningful way, there was loss of life and grievous bodily harm. Senator Graham came on and asked the federales, do you need more money? Do you need more people? And then went on talking about obliterating encryption. You need to pay them, but not to obliterate encryption. You need to pay them so they can process court orders to get that information, because the encryption should not be obliterated. They should have a seamless fucking way. Why are there not enough agents to process fucking immigration paperwork? Why are there not enough agents to process phone calls? Why is there a grievous loss of life? Because you, senators, hold the purse strings. Where is their resource? Where has it been this whole time? Where is that? And where is the secularism in the fucking state? I need tendies.
But they also had radios on the
I know, honey.
net.
I know, but they're going to sink resources into it, and that's going to allow them to silo fucking funds and store generational wealth outside of families, but inside of companies that try to fucking break encryption fruitlessly and for all of eternity. It allows them to fucking hoard money doing something they can't fucking do. They need to have a fucking intranet, not an internet. They need to limit the internet and have an intranet and follow in the fucking suit of China if they want to actually do that, but they've been too busy using that to justify racialism and racism, and so they won't actually do that. And if they actually wanted a good social outcome, they would stop also engaging in racialism and racism and prejudice against China and defer to them for better fucking policy, and the EU as well. However, this is what isolationism and elitism boils into, and you get to watch as an FBI member of staff has to then be lambasted and then filibustered by an asshole. Sorry for being crass, but oh fucking well. who then tries to posture instead of engaging something practically by having them engage information pertinent to a fucking investigation that if there is already grievous fucking bodily harm and loss of life, I actually don't want to have to make them produce that information in public in a way that lets someone destroy evidence, much like they did when we see public representatives doing this in the fucking case of the Zodiac killer, because they can't keep their fucking goddamn mouths shut in fucking public. I'm fucking sorry. Let them do their fucking investigation in fucking silence so we stay safe. Let them have a job. Let them do their goddamn job and give them money. Give them secular money.
It's troubling to me that we did not get that information as quickly as we should have. We didn't know that there was this incident going on, and the only thing we had was that locals were working an issue at the 3 o'clock, which would have been the former president's right-hand side, which is where the shot came. Nothing about man on the roof, nothing about man with a gun. None of that information ever made it over our net.
So that will change?
Yes, sir. We are working right now to figure out the interoperability and also make sure that we do have access to those channels, whether through a counterpart system or some other means.
Very good. Ranking Member Paul, I recognize for your questions.
Director Rowe, I'm encouraged by your attitude and what you brought here today, what you've talked about as far as immediate changes that you've made, and I hope you'll follow through with that. I'm encouraged by the fact that you acknowledge that it's indefensible that the roof was unattended. Would you say the roof being unattended breaches standard protocol for setting up a security perimeter?
What I would say, Senator, is that that roof should have had better coverage, and we will get to the bottom of if there were any policy violations.
I would think indefensible would go along with breaching protocol, and I can't imagine how indefensible would not be breaching protocol. What I would caution, though, is that I sense, and you're the Secret Service, and these people are your friends, and they are heroic people who do good things, that we can't let our friendships blind us from responsibility. So someone's in charge of the security of the zone. Would the Secret Service be in charge of the entire operation, and they work with law enforcement, but they're in charge? The person in charge of the entire operation is the Secret Service, not the local police.
You're correct, sir. This is a failure of the Secret Service.
So that's what I mean. And look, I don't wish anybody harm. I appreciate the bravery of the Capitol Hill Police. I was at the shooting at the ball field. I've heard 100 shots coming my way. Fortunately, none came to me. But I appreciate the bravery of all the people who protect us. But there's also the idea that there are certain mistakes that don't make you a bad person, but they're just inexcusable. That if you made that mistake. So, for example, let's say you determine local police should have been on there, and they told us, and local police says no, they didn't tell us to do it, and it's a he said, she said. Still, ultimately, the agent in charge should be walking the grounds and say, there's a roof 100 yards away from the stadium with a clear sight. Someone's got to be on the roof. Local police, I told you to get on the roof. Get on the roof. Or you put the Secret Service. So ultimately, the buck doesn't pass along to somebody. Whoever's in charge is in charge. But really, I think it would be helpful to all of us. I know the process has to be meted out, but there needs to also be a process for protecting the next Trump rally. The fact that whoever was in charge in Butler next week is not in charge of a rally in Las Vegas. And so I think you really should say that. You should simply say that the leadership from that event is going through a process, but until that process, they won't be in charge of the Democrat National Convention. That would reassure a lot of people that they won't be in charge of security until it's determined. Can you tell us something to that accord?
Yes, sir. So I can tell you that the team planning the Democratic National Convention, that is a national special security event. That team has been on the ground. That's from D.C. With support from our Chicago field office. But I just want to reiterate that our Pittsburgh field office staff, they are wearing this harder than anybody right now in the Secret Service. They feel completely demoralized. And what I'm trying to do is also let them know that, listen, they need to be focused on the mission at hand. I also have to walk a tightrope here and make sure that I'm not tainting any future discipline action.
I understand, and I have great respect for all the officers, but ultimately someone had to be in charge and someone made a terrible error, and it's an error of judgment. The big error is the roof. But another big error is we have 90 minutes of a suspicious person. Now, Senator Durbin mentioned the rangefinder. None of things are enough to shoot a suspicious person, but they certainly...
Is that them deflecting arrows this whole time? Am I just bad at deflecting arrows? Did I get a skill I should have not got? What the?
You would think would be enough to stop the proceedings. That's where I think you get to the second...
Like, either they're deflecting arrows, or they're doing what I would do and just be like... Because it's fun.
Major management or judgment error of this. Now, Trump's done probably 100 rallies like this. How often at one of his rallies are there 90 minutes of looking at one person and at least a half a dozen pictures of that person? How often does that happen? And is it against protocol to let a proceeding go on when you've got a suspicious person, 90 minutes worth of people talking about this person, and we don't stop the proceeding? Does that defy protocol?
So Senator, so while there's 90 minutes in total from when he's first identified by local law enforcement, we have about a 30-minute window. But in no time is there anything ever communicated about weapon or harm. And I think that's where the threat.
A weapon, you shoot people with a weapon.
Sure.
Without a weapon, we're talking about people you stop and say, he had a backpack, which was probably big enough to have the AR-15 in it. In all likelihood, the backpack has the weapon in it. So a guy with a big backpack would never get to the perimeter. So once again, a big mistake was not having the perimeter wide enough to prevent people from shooting outside the perimeter. But the thing is, he would have never gotten through the perimeter, right? His backpack would have been checked. But people with big backpacks are very suspicious. And I would think he's been seen 6 times. But you got 20 or 30 minutes of knowing about it. But the thing is, there's all kinds of chatter going on about this. And you would think the chatter going on with the local police is on a police radio, and a policeman with that radio is standing in the control tent, so you get that communication. So there's a huge and massive breakdown. But really my question is, how often has this happened at other rallies where there's a half a dozen pictures and 90 minutes of people talking about a suspicious person? I just can't imagine this real common.
So Senator, at rallies, there are people that come to the attention of law enforcement for a variety of reasons. You know, if they come to our attention for some other activity that might, you know, put it a little bit, hey, we probably need to go check that individual out. This happens, and that's why we attempt to locate them. That's why it's important for us to try to find them. And it's important to have the information. And so local law enforcement did their very level best to try to locate him. They did provide us the photos 30 minutes prior. It's just he evaded any detection by law enforcement.
But once again, it's the overall person in charge. It's a terrible breakdown. It's a terrible management decision not to have stopped it. There was a chance to stop the proceeding. And the question is not whether there's enough information to take down an individual. It's a much lower standard to say, hey, we're going to wait until we get this individual. The roof and the 90 minutes of it, both I think are failure of your protocol. And I think when that's determined, the person who made these decisions can't be in a position of authority again.
Senator Klobuchar.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for holding this hearing. I appreciated Director Rowe when we had the classified briefing.
And do remember, in the words of Swoop, who we enjoy here, it's genuinely not trauma, it's dangerous.
And also today, taking responsibility for the agency and your own personal emotion and reaction to your visit and what had gone wrong. For the people in my state that keep asking me, I just don't get how we got on the roof. I know we've gone through great details and a lot of examination. Could you just give a minute on what went wrong and how you think it can be fixed? Because I think it's just going to help to dispel the conspiracy theories. There's some people that think it didn't really happen, which of course is completely ridiculous. It did. There are some people that think all kinds of conspiracies went on within the government, which is also false. But could you just tell them what went wrong so they understand?
Thank you, Senator. I thought long and hard about this. I think this was a failure of imagination, a failure to imagine that we actually do live in a very dangerous world where people do actually want to do harm to our protectees. I think it was a failure to challenge our own assumptions, the assumptions that we know our partners are going to do everything they can, and they do this every day. But we didn't challenge our own assumptions of, we assume that someone's going to cover that. We assume that there's going to be uniform presence. We didn't challenge that internally during that advance. So moving forward, I've directed that when we're talking to people and we're making requests, we are very specific on what we want. We are providing explicit instructions on exactly what our expectation is and what we need them to do and what we want them to do. That's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward.
Dear Squama, honey, I'm going to just tell you this from a different perspective. I used to get, I have a lot of trauma I carry with me. A lot of law enforcement people would remark on how vigilant and aware I was. They find it really unusual that just a member of the public is actually very in tune with their environment, you know? Hypervigilance is an affect of our trauma. Most people don't have that consideration. It's not victim blaming, honey. I don't think it is, and you shouldn't have to apologize. It's an observation, but I'm just pointing out most folks don't know what it's like to live in abject horror constantly. It's the first time violence has been brought close to a lot of them. And this is the response of that fear. I think, given my experience, I'd consider it to be an unwise operational security investment in my own care to go sit anywhere near a public crowd, because I get sick easily, loud noises, because I don't like it, a galvanizing figure, because I don't care if I agree or disagree with them. I don't want to, like, literally catch strays, and not to be disrespectful, but, like, to, in the figurative sense, catch strays, rather. Golly gee. And so, I can see why you would have that consideration, because we have been in a place in life where we make these kinds of considerations in our everyday decisions in lives. Not everyone knows what it's like to have violence as the answer to, I didn't pay attention enough today. A lot of folks go their entire lives and never know that, and it's only us who have repetitiously seen that happen to us that bake it into our everyday considerations, you know? It's in part why we have to be noisy and be vocal, even for the underserved folks who don't know what it's like to have to guard themselves, because someone still needs to give a shit about them even when they don't know how to protect or guard themselves from the shit they try to walk into. You should let them learn. But when they learn, like they're doing, we need to do what we're doing and engage it appropriately too, right? And that's okay. It's okay to not know, and it's okay to know. But knowledge is just time spent practiced doing something. Often enough times. They don't have time spent practiced doing this, and unfortunately we do. That's all, honey. I don't think it's victim blaming, but I think it's a wise consideration you make, but it assumes they have the privilege of enough trauma to inform that decision. Now, motherfucker was about to buck back like a mother. Look at this fucking hand. Look at this. Like, this is the hand of... That's the face of, you motherfucker! Is like, you know what's working behind those eyes. So let's... Holy shit. Hold on. Why did I lose audio? Because I pressed the M key.
Who's going to cover that? We assume that there's going to be uniform presence. We didn't challenge that internally during that advance. Assume that there's going to be our own assumptions of, our own assumptions. Thank you, Senator.
This is actually really relevant to what we just said together. This very line is the most relevant thing to what we just said.
False. But could you just tell them what went wrong so they understand?
Thank you, Senator. I thought long and hard about this. I think this was a failure of imagination. A failure to imagine that we actually do live in a very dangerous world where people do actually want to do harm to our protectees. I think it was a failure to challenge our own assumptions. The assumptions that we know our partners are going to do everything they can, and they do this every day. But we didn't challenge our own assumptions of, we assume that someone's going to cover that. We assume that there's going to be uniform presence. We didn't challenge that internally during that advance. So moving forward, I've directed that when we're talking to people and we're making requests, we are very specific of what we want. We are providing explicit instructions on exactly what our expectation is and what we need them to do and what we want them to do. That's the only way that we're going to be able to move forward beyond this. And let me just tell you that our state and local law enforcement partners are the best. So this belief that somehow they are less than federal law enforcement.
I do need to correct myself too, and they're right. Me pointing out and saying state and local law enforcement did not relay the information to the federal law enforcement in a meaningful and impactful enough way to actually, and nor they didn't get it through to them in a timely fashion. They did not relay meaningful information in a timely fashion. Yes, it's looking at a systemic problem, but the answer to that is not to destroy encryption. But it's not that they are individually at fault or complicit in something just from the presence of those scenario, right? They're just people who it is hard to make security concerns decisions.
Enforcement, or they're less than the Secret Service. They're out there patrolling.
And you shouldn't do it in a vacuum. And genuinely deferring to less, like, operate like cells, not like linear chains of command. Linear chains of command are broken when communication separates. You do need to operate like a cell in terms of like conveying information and relaying it appropriately between interactive parts of something to actually maintain it when you like look at this.
Communities every day. They're the ones out there going into hazardous conditions every day. They know their communities. They have the ability to enforce state and local laws. Our advanced agents do not.
Right.
We need them, and we need them to be partners with us. And I think we need to be very clear to them, and that may have contributed to this situation.
Yeah, appreciate that. I have the same respect. Next, one of the things you mentioned to me was, and to all of us, was in this other briefing, was just the texting protocol. And I think a lot of us think about this in non-security settings, about how people are just texting all the time instead of talking, and how it takes their eyes off.
Because even if you fundamentally break all of the encryption, which is impossible, you have to instantiate an intranet inside the United States and remove access to an internet that is external of it. Imagine, like this is an old fucking query, right? 48 hours of video get uploaded every minute. If there's 48 hours of every minute as of years ago per Quora, the People's Journal, the Quora, answering the questions the people asked, or questions in AI phrase. So. But yeah, if there are 500 hours of video content uploaded to YouTube every minute, if messages would include you reviewing video, text, audio, and images. If this is a public platform, I'm on Twitch. There's one of me on Twitch. Don't you imagine there's 50 of me who aren't on Twitch right now? So you're gonna have more volume of information that's of a different purview and scope. You'd also have to have access to private photos. So you would have purview to fucking revenge porn of the entire populace of which you govern. You have to do this through the existent legal frameworks. Sorry, buddy.
In your case, the target.
Like, you have to file a subpoena, hope the tech company releases the information, because some of them genuinely, for security purposes, wouldn't possess it, because certain senators go about talking about, oh, we just need to compel them by force to give us, like, so people won't even contain that. And you can't obligate them to, because we live in a multinational society. As Argonian Bum tells me, and as it irks me to be, like, to have to accept that it is a true phrase, vegcom, you live in a society. Bitch, I don't want to, but she's right. Why don't they hear this? They need somebody that loves them to tell them, bitch, you live in a society. I don't know about you right now. I'm talking about everyone else. You will get whatever you deserve at the end of me lambasting everyone else. We'll see if you get a head pat. Or a scowl.
Talk about what might have gone wrong there and how you think.
It's really hard to upset me more than Maxine talking about needing to sign a bill before it is, sign a bill into law before it's read. It's hard to upset me more than that, honestly, so, you know. Don't take that much. I mean, it takes a lot, but, like, it also doesn't take, whatever.
Things could change when there's, the hope is that their eyes are constantly on the scene and on the potential targets and risks.
Thank you, Senator. So, again, we need people focused on the problem or on their area of responsibility. It was great that there was a text chain, but that communication needs to go over the net. It needs to go over a radio channel so that everyone has situational awareness of it. The point I was making in the closed door briefing is that we have to get to a point now where we are using our radio systems to have that collective awareness of this. I think, one of the things that I've directed is that in addition to the interoperability, we're going to roll out common operating picture, a common operating platform that we utilize for national special security events. We have the ability to roll that out to the field that has a Blue Force tracker in it that's able to, where you can put where all your state and local assets are, where our federal assets are. But in addition to that,
Also, I really do want to give Roland a bit of a fucking... Roland Rowe, thank you so much for bringing this up. The deference to local law enforcement for policy that is only impactful of that local service. Like, honestly, FBI does have field offices in a lot of locations, but I see why you need that. FBI making... I can see why Secret Service makes this remark. Okay? I can see why Secret Service would make that more than FBI. I can appreciate FBI making that remark, but I could see more linearly why Secret Service would say that. I think that's what stands out to me.
Want people using the radio. So it's great that the tactical elements are talking to each other. It's great that the shift is talking to each other, but we have to be able to make sure that whenever we come across a situation, that everyone has situational awareness of this. And I will take this, in my time when I was operational in the President's detail, we were given the explicit instruction, hey, if you're going to pass it, if it's relevant enough that you feel like you need to pass that information, do it over the radio. And that was the protocol that we had. And I think over the years, perhaps with the advent of technology and smartphones, perhaps we've gotten away from that. But we need to get people back on the scope, back on mission, back focused on what they need to be responsible for.
Okay, and the next question I'll put in writing. Thank you very much of you, Mr. Abate, but it's just pointing out that we've seen this rise in threats against members of Congress, which of course is relevant to this. 8,000 just last year, more than 4 times over the past 7 years. I'll want to ask you in writing about...
I'm sorry, are you saying that 7 years ago you got 2,000 threats a year? I would be unable to I could not. That could not be me. Respectfully, Miss Klobuchar, I would not have the fucking gall, the balls, I respect you and can you get all these bitches a fucking orchidectomy? Their balls are too big. Holy shit. If somebody threatened me once, I'd be skirt and skedaddle. I'd be fucking gone. Okay, maybe if I were, like, up there for my constituency, I would have some lack of self-preservation kick in, now that I think about it. But me as a private person, if that happened, I'd be fucking running.
The steps that the Justice Department is taking to prioritize these cases. I know there's been some changes made.
Yes, Senator, it's of our highest priority, and we're urgently working on it 24/7 every day to protect each and every one of you here.
Appreciate it. Thank you, both of you.
Senator Carper, recognized for your question.
Thanks very much, Mr. Rowe, Mr. Abate.
Paul is Secret
thank you for
Service?
joining us today. I have the privilege of
Paul hasn't
representing
spoken
Delaware,
much.
first state to ratify the Constitution. We did that over 200 years ago.
Stay on the lookout for this with me. Is Senate about to conflate the responsibilities of FBI, CIA, NSA, and Secret Service together? Because they're going to later on bring up purview of the CIA for an investigation, and they're going to give the FBI staffer shit for it. They're going to ask the FBI staffer why they didn't do the CIA's job. Right? Are they, like, external, or is it NSA that's external? I don't remember. What the fuck do they do? Bro, I have other shit to do. I'm sorry. Like, I drink juice pouches and I play with stuffies. You expect me to remember which one of them is internal and which is external? Okay, good. Precisely. Okay, ideal. So, yeah, they're gonna bring up another nation state later on in this and ask if the information was about that nation and if that should have been under the purview of the FBI. And going to have to then talk about how the CIA, they're going to put on the FBI, while speaking to the FBI, not addressing the Secret Service member, they're going to do this to the FBI member. And they're going to ask them why they're not doing the explicit job of the CIA. Isn't that funny? That's very odd. This is obscure and we should stare at this.
The Constitution sort of outlines how we elect our leaders. And it changes with respect to technology over the years. But there's, for as long as we've been a country, threats to our leaders when they pursue elective office. We're going to be gathering some of those. We got gathering in Chicago in just a few weeks. Others will be gathering in other parts of the country to help make sure that what was adopted in that original Constitution is actually carried out faithfully. And it's just incredibly important that
vote for me. I'll take my phone into Senate with fucking Twitch on it, and I'll be just the same person I am everywhere else. I will ask people the same fucking questions.
those who aspire to elective office, those who take on those challenges, are protected, and their families are protected, as well as those who surround them. I share
we'll
with
do
my
study sessions together. It'll be
my
fun.
prayers for those who have been killed or injured on the July 13th. We're grateful that our one of our presidential candidates is okay. But I have a question about what I can't get over how a 20-year-old loner could somehow outsmart two of the smartest federal agencies and state agencies and law enforcement with an odds of like 1,000 to 1 and be able to almost pull this off. It just blows my mind. Hopefully we'll get to
glazing
and all of that. I'm a Navy guy. It's been 20 hopefully with an odds of like 1,000 to 1 and be able to almost pull this off. It just blows my mind. Hopefully
you blew them for what now? Please don't tell me you blew them to set up an ad hominem.
We'll get to the truth and all of that. I'm a Navy guy. I spent 20 years of my life in the Navy. I learned as a midshipman that when the ship runs aground at sea, the commanding officer is held responsible. Whether the commanding officer is awake or asleep at the helm, but the commanding officer is held responsible. And I think we have to make, at the end of the day, I'm not interested in a blame game, but I'm sure it's been finding out who was responsible and making sure that they account for their responsibility. My question is, what?
I should have made a bingo. We can basically reuse the Coach Greg Hassan bingo. Oh, I need to change out too much. No, we need ad hominems directly in there because, like, that was a big stand-up of someone's moralization of their history and past to, like, slam on someone else directly as a person instead of addressing the fucking communication concerns we've already had earlier. That's really great. So we're not going to address the overreaching statement about privacy and security that shouldn't have been made by a fucking representative in this capacity. And further, we're not going to talk about how we're trying to have
policies are currently in place to facilitate real-time information sharing between the Secret Service and local law enforcement during an event. And what changes to information sharing?
Honey, I'm basically still playing Sekiro. Oh, it's fine. There you go. Now you are. I don't know if that works. Do you have the, oh my gosh. There is a Fossabot command list. There. If you type this, it'll DM you with anything else. It doesn't have everything involved in it, actually. It's not entirely filled. Okay. 1 teeny second. I will get this done. It is actually listed in the about somewhere. Oofers. I have to go to my own Twitch and mute myself really fast before I hear my egregious fucking voice. Oh my gosh. No one wants to do that. Fossabot. Bless. Bless. Oh, cool. It's set title and set game. Sorry, I had to go and, like, actually look. I would have never have remembered that. Hi, everyone. Quick peek we go. Hi. It's a photo of me covered in stuffies. We be doing stuff. Badoop. Badoop. Badoop.
Practices will the Secret Service make in light of the apparent breakdown in communications on July 13th?
Thank you for that question, Senator. So we're looking at.
If I contextually skip a few hours, it's because I have, I've been here. I've been like later in it. And why are they always addressing Roland? Why is it only Roland? Roland is rolling with the punches. I'm not gonna fucking lie. Like, Roland knows what the fuck is up. Oh, you generally shouldn't have to do anything. Hopefully. I should automate everything. If you're there and you notice that, that's totally fine. But, like, I try to automate the world away so no one has to do shit. Like, if you check the history, it's mostly Fossabot doing stuff. Like, I don't want anyone to have to do stuff. Like, I mod people because I don't have enough VIP slots, TBH. I'm too bitchy about mindfulness and kindness, so I'm never gonna be popular. That's fine. I'm brave.
Our procedure.
We dive. Sorry. Why are they always fucking with Roland? I was mousing around, by the way. I just didn't want to, like, spoil too much. But what got me is it's like, they are always addressing FBI, not Secret Service.
We rely on a counterpart
wild.
system. And the radio interoperability it's a complex challenge. It's not just about being able to find whatever frequency our local counterparts are on and then just piping it in. There's some.
You know that encryption they don't want any more of? Yeah, local law enforcement needs that too. So people can't, like, destroy evidence when they're trying to protect the public's fucking safety. So how are you, senators, going to address this limiting of encryption now, where only law enforcement can get it? Okay, cool.
Technical challenges that have to be there. So to alleviate that, we've always relied on a security room where we have representatives from the local agencies. Those individuals are there to, one, bring their own radio and then relay relevant information that would impact our security plan. I think what I'm looking at, and again, what I'm in looking at this situation is there was a unified command post, and we had our security room, and we had communications that day at the Butler Farm site were challenging. Not just challenging for the Secret Service, but for challenging for locals. There were some cellular issues. There were radio issues, and you saw that with the testimony from the colonel from Pennsylvania State Police last week in the House. So I think as I'm thinking about this, I think we need to consider what is our model moving forward, and I think we need to be where the greatest amount of partners are when that information is being discussed. The other thing that I'm looking at is we need to also make sure that we have redundancies as far as cellular on the ground or additional repeaters. And so I've directed our chief information officer to do that, and we are rolling assets out now supporting campaign sites.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Mr. Bay, quick question. Based on the initial information you've gathered from the investigation, do you believe there were any actions taken by the shooter in the weeks, days, or hours leading up to the shooting that should have caused alarm and grabbed the attention of law enforcement?
He did not have any interactions with law enforcement leading up to this, Senator. We haven't found anything yet that would have alerted law enforcement.
I just want to check something. Is Paul the Secret Service member? I just want to check. I feel like I don't want to be incorrect about this. Okay, no. Paul is our member from... Oh, did they just...
Enforcement leading...
And grab the attention of law enforcement.
He did not have any interactions with law enforcement leading up to this, Senator.
Okay, hold on. I hold myself. Paul is FBI director. And we were looking at the discourse with Roland oftentimes. Roland being a member of Secret Service. Oh, R-O-N-A-L-D, Ronald. Oh my god. Ronald. Oh my gosh, I'm the worst. Can't get people's jobs right, can't get people's names right. Alright, sick. Okay. So they are speaking to Secret Service, but they are asking Secret Service about the purview of CIA. Okay.
we are rolling assets out now,
Sick.
supporting campaign sites.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Mr. Bay, quick question. Based on the initial information you've gathered from the investigation, do you believe there were any actions taken by the shooter in the weeks, days, or hours leading up to the shooting that should have caused alarm and grabbed the attention of law enforcement?
He did not have any interactions with law enforcement leading up to this, Senator. We haven't found anything yet that would have alerted law enforcement or FBI or Secret Service to his intention and activities in advance of this event. I will note, however, to your prior question, that we do have a very strong relationship, an integrated relationship between FBI and Secret Service and every other federal, state, local agency you can imagine. We have constructs like the Joint Terrorism Task Forces and Violent Crime Task Forces where we're cross-embedded with each other. And when it comes to this event and others like it, we're always talking in advance. In fact, with respect to this,
I don't oftentimes look at faces, but when I do, I will notice everything.
and when it comes to this
This
event
person
and
in the
others
back?
like it, task forces where we're cross-embedded with each
Check
other.
this
And when it
person.
comes to this
I think they do the most like nonchalant, just like shoulder roll, and I kind of dig it.
event
Check
and
it.
others like it, we're always talking in advance. In fact, with respect to this event, we did have a meeting between.
They did that. Okay, when I look at faces, it is too much data. This is why I don't look at faces. There's too much information, and it's difficult for me to filter relevance. And it overwhelms me.
U.S. Secret Service and FBI in the days
Okay.
leading up to the event to determine, assess what. Between U.S. Secret Service and FBI.
Oh, I was wrong.
In the days leading up to the event to determine, assess whether there was any information or intelligence pertaining to a threat against the rally or to former President Trump or anyone else there. There was an absence of that in the lead up specifically. And again, none of us had any information in our holdings with regard to the ultimate shooter.
All right, thank you for that. Thanks very much, both of you.
Next on the Senate Judiciary Committee is Senator Grassley.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce my oversight letters and investigative documents into the.
Also, something that irked me earlier, it's not the way it's going to be later. At a point later, all of the photographers are in the middle, in the most decrepit huddle. It's so obscure seeing them not huddled in the middle. Like, I swear, if we look later and they're huddled in the middle, clutched around a phone, you know it's for TikTok, because only one of them got allowed to bring a phone in. I'm kidding, but I could not imagine staying focused for the whole of this.
Information I've already made public.
Without objection.
Okay, thank you. I'd also like to call my colleagues' attention to a legislation that Senator Cortez Matos and I've introduced would require Senate confirmation of the Director of the Secret Service. I think this is very important because no other agency has a no-fail mission. Mr. Rohr, in your written testimony, you stated that that to prevent similar lapses like the one on July 13th from happening again, you'll ensure every event site security plan is thoroughly vetted by multiple experienced supervisors before it's implemented. Based on your testimony, the security plan for the Butler event deviated from the Social Security standards. How would vetting by multiple experienced supervisors fix that?
So, Senator, I think having many eyes on a particular problem set helps. That way, you don't have tunnel vision. You just focus in on one thing. And so that's why I think it's important, not only at the field office level, but also at the detail level. And part of what we had started doing with the former president's detail is having them send out site agents, having them send out supervisors. And I think having that collaboration and having additional eyes to examine the problem will make sure that we're not missing anything. And I think I want that surety for myself. And I think
you've answered my question.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
go on. Also to you, in your written testimony, you stated that you, quote, regret that information wasn't passed to Congress and the public sooner and with greater frequency. What's your communication plan going forward to ensure that the American people in Congress are fully informed?
So, Senator, we just started a rolling production that is bicameral. So we made our first rolling production last week. We made one yesterday. We will continue to do that. And my view is that sunshine is the best disinfectant. and we intend to provide information to Congress as it carries out its oversight function.
Okay. Also, I made public documents that show Secret Service deployed a counter unmanned aerial system operator on July the 13th. According to the Secret Service, the drone system was supposed to be operational at 3 p.m. that day. However, we've been told by Secret Service that because of cellular bandwidth problems, it wasn't operational until about 5:20 of that day. If the system was operational, Secret Service would have had the ability to detect the shooter and his own drone use. Why is the Secret Service dependent upon local cellular network? Does the Secret Service have a backup plan in place?
Yes, thank you, Senator. And that is something that I briefed in the closed door. And again, something that has cost me a lot of sleep because of the eventual outcome of the assailant. That what if we had geolocated him because that counter-UAS platform had been up? It is something that I have struggled with to understand, and I have no explanation for it. It is something that I feel as though we could have perhaps...
I kind of forgot what game I was playing for a second, tried to press the wrong keys. We keep bouncing between 9 Souls, Elden Ring, Sekiro, Sims 4. Oh gosh, and something else.
Perhaps found him. We could have maybe stopped him. Maybe on that particular day, he would have decided this isn't the day to do it because law enforcement just found me flying my drone. People fly drones all the time on the peripheries of our sites. And we go out and we talk to them and we ascertain what their intentions are. On this day in particular, because of the connectivity challenge, as you noted, there was a delay and he flew his drone at 3:51 approximately. So moving forward, we are leveraging resources from the Department of Homeland Security and others to make sure that we have dedicated connectivity so that we're not reliant on public domain, so that we can ensure that whatever assets we have in place, those assets are operational. And that is my commitment to you, that we're going to make sure we're going to do that. And that is something we're moving out on.
Thank you, and I hope that you'll answer some of my other questions in writing.
Senator Johnson, recognize for your questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Acting Director Rowe, in our secure briefing.
See, this being a Senate hearing, I have a lot of respect for people who know to keep some things closed, because public elected officials publishing information about investigations, especially those that involve loss of life and grievous bodily harm, outside of the line of what is in the best interest of the public safety and law enforcement completing their goals, is going to eternally be a fucking gripe of mine.
Last week, I made the point that if you don't want conspiracy theories to spread, you need to provide information. I appreciate these photos today.
Thank you, State of California and the Zodiac, for deciding to have public elected officials release information that was pertinent to an active investigation that contributed to the loss of a line of investigation because someone now knew in public purview, and including, everyone, including the person who was now able to dispose of evidence. So, again, I can understand them trying to curate what they tell the public, inclusive of lying to their suspects.
These things could have been released literally within days, and a whole lot more information as well. So Congress needs to provide oversight. We don't have certain investigatory tools like you have, but what we can do is do interviews. So Acting Director Rowe, did you receive our letter from July 25th requesting interviews with 13 individuals of the Secret Service?
We are in receipt of that letter, Senator.
And I don't Deputy Director Abate, have you seen that letter as well? Do you know who we're requesting interviews with?
Senator, I have not seen.
Okay. Do you know whether those individuals submitted to interviews with the FBI? Acting Director Rowe.
We're in the process. Those employees are being interviewed if they have not already been interviewed, sir.
Are those interviews being transcribed?
The FBI interviews, sir?
Yes. But we have 302s on those.
Yes, Senator. We will.
When will Congress get those 302s? When will we get those transcriptions of those interviews?
Senator, I'll take that back and we'll get those to you as soon as possible.
So, Acting Director Rowe, when will those individuals be made available for Congress, for this committee to interview them?
Senator, we'll make them available.
How soon? Because memories are short. They can be influenced by events. We need these transcribed interviews as soon as possible.
We will get that done, sir.
Poison got us.
Does the Secret Service use encrypted communications at events?
On our radio nets, we do, sir.
Are those memorialized? Are those saved?
The radio traffic from Butler, we did not have recordings.
Do you normally?
Not on the road outside of D.C. or outside of a presidential or vice presidential stop.
So communications between Secret Service agents will not be available like we've gotten the communications from local law enforcement?
I'm sorry, Senator.
So we're not going to be able to get those communications. You didn't save them?
No, sir.
Which is very unfortunate.
It is, sir. And moving forward, I've directed that we will now start recording those so that we will have them moving forward.
And by the way,
that's the kind of information that would come up in a post-mortem after any event. This isn't to be grim, but like when you have an event that requires you make a security consideration, you'll talk about the event after. The event itself gets a post-mortem, may it be the loss of data or loss of a life. You want to not allow these same things to happen repeatedly. So it's reasonable that they would already do that. Good to hear it. That sounds like if they are allowed to continue on that trajectory of doing post-mortems after events of any kind of security concern, that is what I refer to as an event. Anything, if there is any security concern, if they can optimize their fucking framework as they go. That is a good progression. That is utilizing better frameworks for adapting as you go that are respectful of how we need to be able to scale and mobilize ourselves as a whole, as a people worldwide, as we grow. Good job. Good job. That is an okay use of my tax dollars right there. That framework building for improvement, that is an all right use of my tax dollars. I'm not mad at that. Oopsies, my arm was mad at my table, I guess. But that's an appropriate, that seems like an okay use of my tax dollars. Frameworks that improve your processes as you go to allow for iteration as we learn and grow. There is an inevitability of failure in life, and as we do, we cannot allow those same pitfalls to take us. Good job. Good use of tax dollars. It'll have to do. It's a bare minimum, you'd think, because it is the minimum, but it is a good pragmatic minimum, not some bullshit minimum, but a good pragmatic one. Good job. Good job.
I'm going to ask for number.
We have 8 axe attacks in this game right now? 16. It takes 2 to blow an axe. Yikes.
Things very end to be entered in the record, but one of my preliminary findings was that the Secret Service did not attend the 9 o'clock briefing the day of the event. In your testimony, you said that the site briefing was conducted with Secret Service personnel and law enforcement partners supporting the event. Those both can't be true. So local law enforcement do not believe Secret Service was present at the 9 o'clock briefing. Were they, or were they not?
So, Senator, with respect to the snipers that went on national television and gave an interview and said that they did not get a briefing from the Secret Service, they were supporting through mutual aid, and our personnel briefed the tactical team leader was leading that element that was providing this counter sniper.
Acting Director Rowe, you said that the Secret Service provides explicit instructions to locals. Were explicit instructions provided to cover the roof of the AGR building and locals just not follow it, or were those explicit instructions not provided?
It's my understanding what was communicated is that the locals had a plan and that they had been there before.
So an awful lot of the chatter on social media has to do with is there partisanship in the Secret Service, providing coverage for some individuals and none for others, about Secret Service coverage or additional coverage enhancements being denied. Was there ever requested additional coverage for Mar-a-Lago?
Senator, we have provided additional resources to the Mar-a-Lago.
Was coverage asked for and denied ever?
I'll have to research that, Senator, but I'm happy to tell you we have made significant investments since the former president has left office, over $4 million of technology, resources, and alarms.
Documents will come out eventually to make the point one way or the other. This is an important piece of information that Congress needs to have.
Senator, we'll make those available to you, the investments we've made.
There's a report today by Susan Crabtree of Real Clear Politics saying that you denied sniper coverage outside of driving distance to D.C. Is that true?
That is a false statement, sir.
That is incorrect.
That is incorrect.
Okay, I mean, that's kind of information you need to refute with documentation. Deputy Director Abate, you said this is an assassination attempt and domestic terrorism. It's obviously assassination attempt. Why make the distinction? What is different about that?
We think it's important to cover all the possibilities here in the reality of what we're dealing with.
I mean, it could have been not domestic, and that also would have been relevant to state. Like, I'm sorry, that actually is a relevant designator in this capacity. Especially when you have later in this VOD, senators alleging that it has to do with Iran, if I'm correct. They ask if they had to make that consideration. That descriptor seems very viable and valid. That does not make sense. That does not make sense to me. Also, hi, the frown going on by this person is very representative of my feels right now.
With him, what we've all scene, Senator. We've learned lessons from
I
the
get
past.
you, cuz. I get you.
The tragic
Maybe
shooting
not
at
for the
baseball field
same
was referenced
frowny
here.
reason.
We've learned a lesson from that. That was not
Exasperation,
properly,
cousins.
and we've made changes in the
I'm
Bureau,
with
and
you.
it's reflected here in terms of how this investigation is being approached with a completely open mind and inclusive of all the possibilities, including...
Yeah, gonna be honest, the senators honestly don't know how to frame these questions to someone making policy change. Like, they know how to, and they might be manufacturing consent because this is some pantomiming and pageantry beyond all fucking remark. And it is odd that they are continuing to do this. And that this goes on for 6 hours, by the way.
including domestic terrorism.
I fear that makes investigation.
This is some filibuster.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to request that my July 14th letter to Attorney General Garland, Mayorkas, and Ray be entered in the record. It asked for all kinds of information, documentation, asked a lot of questions. My preliminary findings of July 21st and July 23rd, including timelines, a bunch of questions as well, be entered in the record. And then our updated timeline dated today. This goes not only by minute, by second. And we will continue to update this timeline as more information becomes public. This is the way you do investigation. We need to find out literally second by second what happens. So American public.
You don't need to make information public all the time. You, as law enforcement, need to protect the interests of people and also make sure that there is no further grievous fucking bodily harm or loss of life that befalls the public. In a capacity of that, you might sometimes need to withhold some shit from the public, and that is understandable and very much easily appreciable. So I don't see why you've got the fucking... Ooh. You whiny motherfuckers, whiny. Okay, thank you for letting me whine. Appreciate it.
Understand.
Love you.
Without objection, so ordered.
Senator Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to both of our chairman and ranking members for holding this incredibly important hearing critically for the American people to understand the safety and security that is being provided to our national leaders. Thank you both for being here and for, again, answering the hard questions. This is a time of, I think, heightened attention, deservedly so, not only for our national leaders, but for the teacher who decides that they're going to go and participate in their democracy, or the firefighter who wants to hear the voice and vision of the potential next leader of this country. My thoughts and prayers really are with those Pennsylvania families who have lost loved ones or have been critically injured. As I offer my questions today, it would be in service to those, to preventing future incidents. But in the one question of looking backward to the event on the 13th, Director Abate, can you just talk a little bit about how did Mr. Crooks, how was he able to get an AR-15 onto the roof of that building? Does your investigation illuminate anything that we have learned to help to make that point more clear?
We don't have definitive evidence yet as to how he got the rifle up there. Based on everything that's been collected thus far, photos, video, eyewitness accounts, we do believe he likely had it in the backpack.
Broken down in the backpack?
We're still assessing that. Our laboratory has looked at the rifle itself and measured that against the backpack itself. And if placed in this backpack, it would extend outside. It would have been visible. We don't have anyone who observed him with the backpack with a rifle barrel or other part of it sticking out of the backpack. But the rifle would not have fit fully into this backpack to be concealed and whole. We have video that was recently found of the shooter walking in a distance from his car just before 6 p.m., about 5:56, I believe. And based on everything we have, we assess that he returned to his vehicle at that time, got the backpack, and then proceeded back to the area, into the AGR building. And then he's observed, of course, on the roof, just minutes later, holding the backpack in front of him. In fact, there's dash cam footage from a police vehicle that shows him briefly traversing the roof with the backpack in front of him. And then it's just minutes after that he's actually seen by the officer who I described with the rifle on the roof. It's possible that he broke the rifle down, though we don't have conclusive evidence of that, and took it out of the bag on the roof in those moments before and reassembled it there. That's one of the theories we're looking at and working on right now.
Thank you for that. You take me right, Acting Director Rowe. Thank you for your years of dedicated service and jumping in a hot time. But you take me right to this point of communication. There's been a lot of conversation about and even in your written and verbal testimony, you have talked a lot about the communication in the disparate nature in which it's happening across the different channels. One sort of foundational question that I have is, are all elements of an event communicated on the same channel? If I lost my kid and I'm at a big rally, are local law enforcement talking on the same channel about me losing my kid, that they're talking about a suspicious individual?
So when it comes to the locals,
I need to focus away
they
from the
likely
game for a
have some
sec.
type of common channel that they work off of in a county or an adjoining municipality. When it comes to the Secret Service, we do have various channels for various agents and.
So, why are they not releasing that information? Easy. They as law enforcement shouldn't release information that can compromise their investigation and continue to contribute to the loss of life or grievous bodily harm of others. Law enforcement should be able to withhold information from the public in those events, and I don't see a problem with them withholding it. They need to be able to withhold that, because when they didn't, the example I keep contrasting it to is explicitly California's incident with the Zodiac killer. Because the public office members released information to the public, the police know that the line of evidence they were following no longer was able to be followed. Because they released information about a shoe, someone threw out their shoes and they've never been able to recover the shoes or find them in any further fucking shit. Because when you talk about active criminal investigations, people destroy evidence because they don't want to go to jail. You don't want to tip your hand. You're doing an investigation. You want to keep people safe. That's why. They can't do that because it's not in the best interest and safety of the public. The fact that the senator is asking them to, that is what I mean by posturing and pantomiming. Them asking them to do that is for Twitter and fucking clips. Like, that shit isn't functional. The senators that explicitly say, I have other questions that I wrote you in a letter, are the ones that are doing that appropriately. There are some things that have to be discussed in closed sessions, not the ones that are fucking public, especially about active criminal investigations where there is loss of life and grievous bodily harm. It's wild. Yikes. This is so fucking... This is the definition of obscurity. What the fuck? Odd nonsense. This is odd as fuck. It's very odd that they'd be doing this in this particular way. And again, I haven't been critical of everyone, but we're being critical of everyone's approach. I've been critical of everyone equally. I haven't been scathing of everyone, because not everyone has said something that I find to be abhorrent and entirely without consideration where they need to go defer to a subject matter expert. Like, honestly, pick up after Moist Critical. If you don't know what you're doing, don't talk about it till you do. Just do that. Like, it takes like 1 second, cousin. Just like choose not to speak when you don't know. Not you, honey, the senators. You better keep talking. But they are the ones that gets to like dictate the fucking form and fashion of a public fucking hearing where the information released might impact that of a currently ongoing investigation that involves people dying and being injured. Like, we will never get those people back. Okay? That hurts me because I love everyone.
Our uniformed division officers working specific aspects of that advance.
So it's not possible that the delay in communication or the losing of the thread of tracking this individual was sort of lost in the commotion of all of the other communications that could have been, or maybe was separate from the communication channel.
Like, what they say to public and what they say to, like, their suspects, I don't give a shit, because they're allowed to lie to us to withhold the operational security requisite to actually fucking do their job and actually arrest the people who actually wish to cause actual harm to others. And they're not supposed to talk about bullshit they aren't able to back up in public, because imagine if they mention the wrong person, the wrong brands, the wrong item, the wrong bit of evidence. This now shapes the public. People can destroy evidence. People can start calling in fake shit. People can start fabricating evidence. People can start doing all sorts of un-okay things. And we've already seen the fire hose of falsehood get unleashed on Twitter with recent fucking things that have gone on. People have been falsifying messages from people at the same time that there are legitimate fucking safety concerns. Right? Like, you already have legitimate safety concerns, and then people toss on Mott and Bailey style as is in fucking vogue today, it seems. All of 2024, Mott and Bailey is in vogue. It is the fucking flavor of the day. Like, I don't want them breaking cryptography. I want them going to a judge and subpoenaing the information they want like they have to. And I want them getting it. And I don't want them telling everyone what company they had to subpoena. I want the companies to be able to make the choice to fucking run a canary of sorts, to where you can identify you've been good until this time, at which point at this point law enforcement breached your shit. Like, you know, businesses run canaries like that sometimes that believe in privacy. They have to, like, comply, but they can at least publicly state that they've complied in a less direct way. They don't have to say with which government. They just have to tell people that your data has been breached by a government, leveraging their monopoly on violence to get to those ends. That's all. So, transparency. I think that the companies shouldn't be obligated to use an intranet explicit to each nation. And I think that if they want to run that, they need to go through their same legal frameworks to fucking facilitate it. Like, I'm sure there is a way where they can follow their same frameworks and defer to China for better fucking guidance. And EU. But with the isolationism, we don't know. We'll see.
That were happening. Senator, I can only speak to the Secret Service lines of communication, and we did not have anything beyond suspicious person that was communicated to us.
Last question really quickly, because I'm out of time, but Acting Director, was there any communication with the Secret Service that was talking directly with the former president's detail? That feels like there's been some question by colleagues about why the call wasn't made to delay the event. Help us understand the communication that either was or was not happening directly with the former president's detail to make the call to delay 10 minutes. When we've all been to these events, they never happen on time. But to delay while this was being investigated.
I mean, I'm honestly just annoyed at U.S. using racialism to consistently be unkind towards China. Just systemically, you know.
So the detail,
no monopolies on violence causing harm into others. Thank you and please. I don't like my tax dollars going to harming others. Nor do I like my tax dollars going to paying people to compromise an investigation that is actively to dissuade the continuation of violence against other fucking living creatures' bodies. Get off it. Like, do it in private fucking sessions, honestly. But this is posturing. This isn't fucking a real fucking stance on this. This is debate lording and filibustering to be an asshole.
They were
and talk about the fucking benefits and virtues of disclosing information about an investigation while that investigation is going on, instead of sewing it up and protecting people.
Operating on their net, which our security room was monitoring. But again, having information of a suspicious individual. There were other calls that day of individuals that came to the attention of law enforcement, of people that needed medical attention. So it really, that particular, regarding the assailant, that never really rose to a level of we should not put him out there. Had we known that there was a dangerous individual out there, we would never let a protectee go out on stage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I guess I have to clean them
Senator
up.
Heston, recognized for your questions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you and Chairman Durman and the ranking members for holding this joint hearing today. And thank you to our witnesses, not only for being here, but for your careers of service to our country and to the men and women you lead. I am really grateful that former President Trump is safe and extend my sympathies to the family of Corey Humper-Atur, who was fatally shot at the rally, and my sympathies to everyone who was injured. On July 13th, major failures nearly led to the assassination of a presidential candidate who is also a former president of the United States.
Take care. I love you.
The Secret Service has to be fully transparent about how this happened and how it's going to change moving forward, understanding there's also a need to balance Congress's engagement in oversight with allowing law enforcement to conduct an ongoing criminal investigation. I want to thank the agents of the Secret Service for selflessly acting to protect.
I like the way the senator carried that. That statement was well executed and actually seems to, at a very quick brush, represent my concerns. Respect.
elected officials and their families, and our former presidents. We're grateful for their sacrifices and their service, and I want to thank all law enforcement, and particularly law enforcement officers and first responders who worked to minimize harm to the crowd on July 13th.
Thank you.
Mr. Rowe,
oh, I love
I want
you.
to start with you. New Hampshire hosts many
Oh, you're
political
charming.
rallies. Protecting the speakers and attendees at these
Please
events
don't fuck it up.
requires extensive coordination between state and local law enforcement, the Secret Service staff, and obviously campaign event staff. As a former governor, I've experienced some of the challenges that this type of coordination can create, but we know that this coordination is really essential to public safety. It's clear that there were significant coordination failures on July 13th. You told us earlier that the local SWAT team told the Secret Service that local law enforcement had eyes on the agent.
So far, this one's cooking, and I think I like them. I like the fucking cut of their fucking jib. We'll see how it carries through. A lot of people can, like, they know how to posture. I'll give them that. I'm too fickle for that shit.
Our roof. But there are reports that members of a local SWAT team never...
Their fickleness won't work on me, rather.
...met with the Secret Service in the days before the Butler rally.
I'm precocious as fuck.
What steps does the Secret Service take prior to political rallies to ensure that the agency is effectively coordinating with the candidate security details, with state and local law enforcement, and with campaign event staff?
So as part of the advance...
This seems like a puff question now. That said, this does seem like a very confirmation of a public... Like, it seems like you can answer this with publicly available information, or at least can corroborate it against. This might be a trap. This might be the best laid trap on the internet. Take heed, 2024. Depending on, like, this could still be the best laid trap on the internet in 2024, alright? What I'm getting at is, it may not be sprung on in such a way, you know? Yeah.
Process, Senator, as happened in Butler as well. There's a police meeting, and basically that is that initiates the advance. That's bringing in all the not only emergency management officials, but all the state and local law enforcement agencies that may have aspects of supporting or assisting in that advance and on that visit. The focus of that police meeting, one, is to exchange numbers and business cards, and then coordinate times for walkthroughs. There were walkthroughs of the Butler Farm site with local law enforcement agencies that were supporting that visit. And that was directly as a result of having that police meeting to begin the process of figuring out, dividing up the labor areas of responsibility.
So what you're telling me
the
is
arrow
that
interrupted me.
The Secret Service, the first meeting led to the walkthrough that the Secret Service does with local law enforcement, and that at least some members or directors of the local SWAT team would have been part of that process?
Well, as I understand it, the Beaver County, they were seconded to assist Butler, but the Butler ESU team were part of the advance process.
Okay. How many agents did the Secret Service provide to plan and secure this event, and how many people from state and local law enforcement agencies supported the security of this event?
So in totality, between law enforcement, state and local, and federal, there were 155 personnel at the Butler Farm site that day. All combined Secret Service, it's in the 70s. And then we had support from Homeland Security investigations that were providing post standards.
Where's my spawn?
We had approximately 70 or so various Pennsylvania state law enforcement.
Oh, it's right
Thank
here.
you. I want to go to one other issue before my time expires. You've talked today and in our secure briefing about the interoperability of the Secret Service's counter-drone capability, that it failed.
Okay. This moment, up until this question, I feel quite tepid about this. Like, it's chill, right? It's chill. I'm really curious about their stance on this. I genuinely want them to engage these concerns about, like, funding desperately. I think they're leading up to that. I hope they do so in a way that doesn't continuously harken back to that person who is trying to talk about privacy nonsense, who needs a subject matter expert to come and sit on their lap and stop them from yapping.
Early on, and so it didn't catch the drone flown over the site by the shooter. First, what changes you've addressed this a little bit, what changes is the Secret Service making to ensure that it has backup technology? But also, what efforts did the Secret Service undertake to coordinate with other law enforcement regarding anti-drone capability at the rally site?
We're working to determine that right now, Senator. We're getting the redundancies in place. Counter-UAS authority, it is a little complex. State and locals don't necessarily have this ability to do that. It does require coordination with the FAA because it could impact commercial travel.
Okay, thank you.
I
And
was trying.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to follow up, and I think one of the things that
I thought I
you're
could do
hearing from a lot of
something.
folks
Turns
that
out
I'm
I
not sure
can.
we're really clear on yet is how is it that somebody who clearly is arousing concern from law enforcement isn't identified as suspicious, and how is it that that information doesn't get to the former president's detail? So I'll follow up in writing. Thank you.
Senator Cornyn?
I have the game turned down a lot, so I didn't notice the burning sound quickly. It's negative 24 dB below its usual floor. I need to bring it up a little bit. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Rowe, can you explain why the shooter's
2
drone
extra
worked?
dB for me.
Because there was no counter UAS present, sir. Well, you had a drone system, but you had bandwidth problems. The bandwidth apparently was adequate for the shooter's drone, but not for the Secret Service. Can you explain that? I have no explanation for it, sir. We also know that in a military context, electronic warfare or jamming capabilities are commonly used on the battlefield. Does the Secret Service have jamming capabilities or drones? We have drones, sir, and when it comes...
Okay, this is an operational question that I want the answer to. The fact of the fucking matter is, to take that phrasing from fucking politicians, when my eyes perk up because you were talking about something to do with concerning your operational security, and me, who loves insight into law enforcement and their purchasings, their holdings, and what the fuck they're doing as they try their hardest to execute upon the fucking things we're supposed to be able to ask them to do. Like, this is some pageantry, and it is inappropriate. Like, this is going into the realms of inappropriate pantomiming, and it needs to stop. Like, I want the answer to that question. My eyes perked up. You shouldn't be answering that question. Yes, you should have access to that, but, like, that's all law enforcement. If you have to requisition or pay for it, that's different, but you have access to it. Unless it's become illegal to use it, and honestly, it's a safety concern, so I don't think you should use it because it uses cell fucking bands. And you've already spoken about how you just have to intercept, speak with, and talk to all these people and tell them to knock it off. And that's usually the fucking gig. So this feels like a very inappropriate question for this fucking particular Given what has happened, either you wrote this question down in advance and were determined to ask it for fucking verbatim for what you fucking wrote, or you just pulled this shit up to, like, ask a very unhelpful question that puts operational security, again, way too in the public eye.
To have to be very careful about how I answer this one in an open forum. What I can tell you is that we have technical security measures, sir, to address...
Yeah, shit, that's shit's human rights. You shouldn't be doing it, but, like, they're under the same purview as everyone else that has access to it, so they probably have access. Their utilization of it, maybe, like, that might be if or whatever. That might be like a, maybe, you don't know. But, like, they have access to it like the rest of them.
Chairman. Director Rowe, can you explain why the shooter's drone worked? Because there was no counter UAS present, sir. Well, you had...
I mean, it's not, like, if it's a comparative of why the... I don't want to just call them that. I need to find a fucking word that fits for me, that isn't disrespectful, doesn't surmise them up into a galvanizing thing, and the person who did... The underserved person who hurt another and thought that was an appropriate way to fucking act. It doesn't... it is a comparative against the federal law enforcement's capabilities that they have a cell thingy that works when someone else doesn't. Though relevant in the extent of, yes, you could have redundancy on every bit of hardware, you'd have to have, like, multiple cell lines on every bit of hardware, and then you have to start reporting it to the FCC at points because you have to, like, talk about, like, how high you're going to be flying it and where you're going to be flying it, and not, like... You can only fly drones up to a certain capacity without having to declare your flight plans nowadays, and it adds a whole... Because of, like, reckless policy, up in the early 2000s, you have to, like, declare drones up to certain weights, past certain weights anyways, so payloads that might allow you fucking multiple, like, degrees of cell redundancy. may become less viable if you're trying to also follow local and state law. So to be fair, for what it's fucking worth, also, while we're on that fucking one, it's unsafe. If you turn off a drone in the air, it can either go back home, yeah, or it could fucking crash into someone and contribute to the grievous fucking bodily harm I keep getting pissy about. Am I the only one getting pissy? Of all these scowling people, am I the only one scowling because there is grievous bodily harm and loss of life?
A drone system, but you had bandwidth.
They're all scowling over dick size. I'm scowling over fucking loss of life and grievous bodily harm. I don't think these things are fine. I will never be okay with those things.
Problems. The bandwidth apparently was adequate for the shooter's drone, but not for the Secret Service. Can you explain that?
And I'm again gonna, instead of calling them that word with the S, call them an underserved person who made a decision that I cannot get behind, but should have had social fucking systems to intervene and prevent them from getting to that point. And I can understand that fucking weight on the fucking Secret Service's heart when they want to also look at that person as under fucking served. Which, if I can read anything about the fucking situation, the Secret Service feels fucking sorrow of any loss of this person in particular, not them as an organization, but the fucking compassionate human being who has fucking empathy right there. And you would probably be more likely to trust with your family members because they have fucking empathy, is like, I don't like loss of life. Is that what I'm reading? Because that's what I want my tax dollars going to supporting, not a bunch of fucking people who wish to use galvanizing remarks to paint a fucking picture quickly and haphazardly that contributes to fucking harm being sown.
I have no explanation for it, sir.
We also know that in the military context, electronic warfare or jamming capabilities are commonly used on the battlefield. Does the Secret Service have jamming capabilities?
I love that I get to feel vindicated every time I open my mouth right now. A bitch feel fucking cool some days.
Or drones?
We have drones, sir, and when it comes to, I have to be very careful about how I answer this one in an open forum. What I can tell you is that we have technical security measures, sir, to address, I think, what you're asking me.
Well, the question is, can you take down a suspicious drone? Because this can be used not only for surveillance by the shooter, which obviously...
Again, not in a public forum. Every other Mr. Lee, who are you the Honorable Mr. Lee, who the fuck do you represent? This should be answered, again, as the other Honorable Senators have cited. In the letters they have requested this, you should not be asking about operational capability of a law enforcement fucking agency in a public fucking forum, because in a galvanizing conversation about loss of life and grievous bodily harm when it puts the investigation that is actively going on at further fucking risk, my guy. What the fuck? Whiny bitches. I'm a whiny bitch, first and foremost. So I am talking to my own, as I call them, whiny bitches.
It was here, but also drones can be weaponized and be used as...
We're taking a break in this. Okay, back to it. Back to it. Let's fucking go.
As a threat to the president, or in this case, the President Trump. Do you have the capacity to stop a weaponized drone?
Game.
What I will tell you, sir, is that we have technical security measures that we utilize at permanently protected sites. We also have the ability, in a limited fashion...
I'm gonna get us to either back to the idol or through respawn, because death, or we're gonna get there through death, then I want to go play Smelly Ring.
At temporary sites, what I can tell you is that on this day, the counter-UAS system had technical difficulties and did not go operational until after 5 o'clock.
So in this case, the shooter had a rifle, but somebody who wanted to kill a president or a former president or candidate for president would not need a rifle. They could use a drone, correct?
It is a potential threat vector.
So this individual was identified as a suspicious person. Can you explain to us when a suspicious person becomes identified as a threat?
Well, I think it's also when a weapon or some other dangerous item is then presented.
A rangefinder would not render someone a
golf rangefinder.
Somebody who was under suspicion.
I think the rangefinder is what
it's a golf rangefinder.
Initially brought him to the attention of local law enforcement.
That doesn't minimize it, but you have to actually investigate. You can't just run off fucking rip and be a fucking Rambo about it, you know? Respectfully. Thank you for actually investigating. I'm still heartbroken that anyone got harmed. I will never find a world where I am okay with grievous bodily harm or loss of life. Those break my heart too fucking much.
And why would the president be allowed to take to the stage while a suspicious person had been identified and before the Secret Service or local law enforcement were able to investigate the circumstances?
So at that time, Senator, suspicion had not risen to the level of threat or imminent harm.
Well, you didn't. Ultimately, that suspicious person did become a threat. Do you think if the president had been asked not to take the stage and during the time it took to investigate to eliminate that suspicion, that wouldn't that have been the appropriate way to deal with it?
Senator, it certainly is one way to do it. This is a challenge for law enforcement in general, is that being able to, you identify somebody that comes to your attention and you're trying to determine what are their intentions. This is a challenge for law enforcement. The individual came to the attention for suspicion. He's on the outer perimeter adjacent to the.
And you'll notice the consistency of my full, you'll notice a consistency, right? People that want there to be patience investigations so we don't run off making risky and wild accusations, taking advantage of our power in that position to do so. You're going to notice, I hope, a consistency in the people who chose to speak today.
The secured site, law enforcement is circulating for him. But again, without additional information, at that point, we're not rising to the level yet where.
Yes, I have some gripes, but there are a lot of them who are genuinely consistent, and we can appreciate that where we see it. Yes, I'm griping about the outliers of that, but that does not detract from the awesomeness of the people who were kind.
Perhaps we should pull him off or delay him.
And I'm just suggesting that maybe, just maybe, President Trump's appearance should have been delayed while that suspicion could be adequately investigated. But I've always thought of the Secret Service as the best of the best when it comes to their willingness to put themselves in harm's way to protect the life of their person they are detailed to. And I think you described the very rigorous process by which people are screened. And I think you mentioned the 2% standard. People who are interested in serving, only a very small fraction of those individuals are actually accepted in the Secret Service because of the high standards that your agency has. But explain to me why the Secret Service, being an elite law enforcement agency, would delegate to local law enforcement or others who did not meet that same 2% standard. In other words, isn't that something that Secret Service should have covered as opposed to delegating it to local law enforcement?
So, Senator, again, this is where I went back to earlier when I said it was a failure to challenge our assumptions. We assumed that the state and locals had it. By no means do I want to diminish the commitment, and I'm sure you agree, state and local law enforcement do their jobs every day and protect the communities that you represent.
No doubt about it.
So I think what we made an assumption that there was going to be uniformed presence out there, that there would be sufficient eyes to cover that there was going to be counter sniper teams in the AGR building, and I can assure you that we're not going to make that mistake again. Moving forward, I've directed our Office of Protective Operations that when our counter snipers are up, their counter snipers are up and they're on the roof as well. And we do this all the time with our colleagues in the New York City Police Department when we cover the United Nations General Assembly. And so that is our TTP moving forward.
Director Rowe, I would just submit to you that those assumptions can be lethal.
Senator Scott, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me just follow up with what Senator Cornyn asked. Do you know who makes the drone that the Secret Service uses?
That Secret Service uses?
Yeah, the one that that didn't work. Who's the manufacturer? Is it an American-made manufacturer?
I believe it is, Senator. I'll get to we'll provide that to you in a queue for sir.
So we talked about this the other day. There's not in our very few times in history do our presidents get shot at. So you know that this is something that the American public is very interested in. So as Senator Johnson said, there's a lot of questions being asked. I was at church Sunday and 3 people came up to me and asked me if there was a second shooter. So there's all this information that's not you guys are not responding to. When I was governor of Florida, I had 2 mass shootings. I had the Pulse nightclub shooting. I had the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, and we did 2 or 3 times a day, local, state, and federal law enforcement, FBI, everybody involved. We answered questions. What I asked you the other day is why aren't you doing that? What you've allowed, what both of you have allowed, you've allowed the public to assume the negative. And so, which I don't get. I think you should have been doing, and I think you should have been doing all along, at least once a day press conferences. I think that you've got to tell the public what's going on. Having a hearing is really nice, but how often are we going to do this? You're clearly not going to do it here for another month and a half. So I asked you the other day, why aren't you doing press conferences? And are you going to commit to doing press conferences? I think what you all said the other day, you're going to ask Secretary Mayorkas and Director Wray if you guys could do those daily press conferences and start giving the public information. What's the answer?
So, Senator, that's why, one, I'm here today. I'm here today to provide information and answer those questions. And we are moving towards doing more frequent releases of information. And we are willing to do that press conference. And once we get through this hearing today, we are going to, in all likelihood, do one this week.
Okay, so what's the commitment to the public that you're going to do press conference? Are you going to, it's what, 17 days? The information, we are sitting 17 days into this and I'm getting asked questions that I can't believe are true, but the public believes it's true. So what you all are doing is you're ruining your reputation, you impact the integrity of the federal government. It makes no sense to me. So are you going to commit to, are you going to do it once a month? And the FBI, same thing, not just you. What did Director Wray say? Did he say you couldn't do it?
Senator, if I may jump in here. First, thank you all for your guidance in this regard. And in fact, we haven't done something every day, no doubt about that. But we're focused from the FBI side on the investigation part as we laid out here today. We actually, based on your guidance, we did a media engagement, not a stand-up type press conference just yesterday, and laid out in full everything that I've shared here, and even beyond that, just in the interest of time. But we are, because of the intense interest in this, and the implications and the national importance, we've literally provided everything through media and through journalists and here, all of the information that we have derived from the investigation thus far. We remain committed to do that in full, answering any and all questions and sharing any and all information we obtain.
Do you guys realize the value of going in front of the press and answering all their questions? You realize if you don't do it that way, everything gets filtered. You get to put out all the information, and you should be providing. You should be every day say, this is what we know now. This is like Senator Johnson put together a timeline. You should have put together a timeline. You should immediately put out, this is what we know right now, and this is what we don't know. Like you've said, you don't know how the gun got up there, right? You've said it, but why have that should have been out all along? Say, we're looking at it, it doesn't make any sense. We've done this, we've done this, we've done this. If you do, I just don't get it. Why what you're doing? You're ruining. I've said this about the FBI. The people that work at the FBI, people who work at Secret Service, they're great people. You're a black hole. You lose the support of the American public because people don't believe you're being direct with them. So I completely disagree with your approach. I just want to finish. I've got like everybody else. I said I did a letter July 18th. I haven't gotten any answers yet. I want to put it into the record, and I'd love to get the answers to this because this is what the public is asking for. They want more information. They want to know what happened, who's going to be held accountable, and how we're going to make sure this never happens again. Thank you.
Without objection, it'll be entered in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here to both of you, and more important, thank you for your professional dedication, your personal bravery, and your devotion to the ideals of law enforcement. I know for both of you this moment is a painful one, and Acting Director Rowe, I've heard you speak in a private setting very emotionally and passionately about the need to take responsibility and take action that will assure accountability. And I know that you share a commitment, along with Director Abate, to full public disclosure to the maximum extent possible. We can make speeches at you, and I've made one myself in that private setting about the need for broader, fuller disclosure to the public, not just in press conferences, but in the course of your investigation about what you know and feel you can disclose without compromising your investigation. Let me ask you, last week, Senator Peters
meaningful.
And Paul, along with Senator Johnson and myself, sent requests to both of your agencies to produce documents. We've only received a handful so far. Can you commit to when we can expect those documents?
We will get them to you as quickly as we can, Senator.
Well, can we expect them this week?
We will work to meet that deadline, sir.
And when can we expect all the communications, the text messages that agents have sent to each other? Eventually, all of it is going to come out, as you know. When can we expect all of those documents?
We will gather them up and get them to you, Senator.
You, I think, took the position as to the local law enforcement responsible for the shooter on the roof, the snipers that were in place, that it was their job to take them out. But ultimately, doesn't the buck stop with the Secret Service?
It stops with us, sir, but let me just clarify. The perspective that they had on that roof, when I show you the perspective from what our sniper saw, he's on the downside of that ridged roof. Their perspective from the AGR building, looking out, their area of responsibility, looking left, they should have been able to see. You can see in that photo in Exhibit A, which we will make part of the record and turn over to the committee. He's already crossed over that bridge or the walkway and stepped up onto that roof. I'm not saying that they should have neutralized him, but if they'd have just held their post and looked left, maybe. And there's a lot of maybes there, Senator.
A lot of maybes, but somebody needs to be held accountable. And I think Senator Graham hit the nail on the head. We need to know who specifically was responsible for doing what. Who was responsible for saying to former President Trump, sir, it's not safe to go out there yet? Who was responsible for making sure that those local law enforcement were doing their job? Who was responsible for tracking down that suspicious person who fit the profile? 10 to 25 years old, young male. The FBI has warned us about it year after year after year. Director Wray has come before us and said, the threat is from domestic extremism. The lone gunman, we're all aware of it in law enforcement. So
I mean, it's valid. I mentioned that earlier.
Accountability here, and
I mentioned it earlier when I said that was a valid designator for them to try to designate if it was like, for them to try to state if it was going to be assumed to be domestic or otherwise was a valid consideration in their allocation of duty, and also in assessing who might be, oh, we shake our finger at you, a bull, you know? Okay, dope. Heart you oodles.
people need to be held responsible, in fact, lose their jobs, if necessary, to send a message that this massive intelligence and surveillance failure.
You should do an investigation and see the yield of it before you call for people to lose their jobs. Losing their jobs should be the least of your concern. You should be most concerned with finding out what happens, allocate that other kind of nonsense later.
As well as the enforcement failure cries out for accountability. Let me just ask, in the short time I have left, what is the nature of the Iran threat?
Again, this is precisely why them drawing the designation of local or otherwise is important and needed to be brought up. So, yay.
I'm sorry, Senator, could you repeat the question?
What is the nature of the Iran threat, the threat to former President Trump that has been mentioned?
But we know, let me be clear here, the terrorist regime of Iran have been targeting people or country for many, many years now. We've talked about that here before. I want to be clear about that. From the FBI standpoint, we know publicly they've targeted former President Trump. They've called for his assassination along with other current former government officials. That's public information. It's well known to everyone.
A specific or imminent threat on July 13th?
We have no information that there are any co-conspirators, or that foreign or domestic, including Iran, related to this. But we're not, I want to be clear, we have no evidence of that. We're not ruling anything out. We're looking into all possibilities and leaving our minds open to that.
Was that on the minds of the Secret Service on July 13th, that there might be some threat from Iran?
Sir, we, as Deputy Director Abate just said, we're aware of the public sentiment and statements of the government of Iran to do harm to Donald J. Trump, and we use a threat-based model.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. President.
Senator Ossoff, you recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for your testimony today and for your service. Mr. Rowe, I want to begin discussing Secret Service staffing and the extent to which HSI or other personnel are augmenting or backfilling inadequate Secret Service capacity generally and on the day of the assassination attempt. To what extent are HSI personnel, for example, filling close protection roles that would normally or optimally be filled by Secret Service personnel?
So, thank you, Senator, for that question. So, as we have done, even back when we were with Treasury, we enlist during campaign years the assistance of other law enforcement agencies in that department. So, when we were in Treasury, we used ATF, we used IRSCI. When we transferred over to the Department of Homeland Security, we have brought that practice with us. So going into a campaign year or during a national special security event like the United Nations General Assembly, we will enter into a memorandum of assistance for the campaign with HSI. HSI will provide post standers, essentially federal agents, law enforcement, to be able to help secure a site. When it comes to close protection, the only time that we will utilize them is during a United Nations General Assembly, where they may be utilized to protect a low-level head of state or provide security at a hotel in New York City where those protectees are staying.
So on the day in question, all of the former president's close protection detail were full-time Secret Service personnel?
They were, and they were assigned to the Donald Trump detail.
Interoperability with other federal and state and local law enforcement agencies, specifically on communications. what have you determined to date played a role in failures to swiftly communicate between agencies the suspicion or identification of a threat?
Well, I think there was a delay in reporting, not having that real time. So as they were closing in on him, as information is known, as
be more specific, when who were closing in on him?
As local law enforcement were closing in on him, as he's seen scurrying across the roof, right? That information, and we're getting to the bottom of that. We're working on trying to figure out what was the delay. Why didn't we hear that coming out of the unified command? So based on the information I have right now, what I can tell you, Senator, is that apparently not having that real-time information is what really hindered us in being able to understand more than it was just the locals working an issue at the 3 o'clock. There was actually a little bit something more urgent than that.
Does it appear that that is due to a lack of communications links between relevant core communications practices and the failure to report?
Beepers.
I don't want to rule out. I want to have a neutral opinion on that. So I don't know if it was poor practices. I can tell you that the interoperability, not being able to have that technical fix, which is a lofty goal to be able to do that, is something that has been a hindrance. But that's why we use a counterpart system.
So there, in fact, is not the capability when an intergovernmental, interagency team is deployed to secure a site like this and to mount, if necessary, a quick reaction. There is not currently the capability for example, state law enforcement SWAT personnel or local law enforcement officers to communicate directly with Secret Service officers on site?
So technically you could do it, but it would take a long time to get it done. And for a 1 day or an 8-hour operation, it requires a lot. And it would be months of planning, of knowing that we are going to go to this particular jurisdiction and that we're going to need your frequencies, the keys, and we're going to need to load you into our radios, and you're going to be needed to load it into ours, and vice versa.
Right. Well, this presents potentially, I think, an opportunity for the Homeland Security Committee. I mean, not just in an executive protection context, but any complex incident response, any counterterrorism, any natural disaster context. The inability swiftly to link personnel from disparate jurisdictions at the local, state, and federal level is a vulnerability for the nation, is it not?
I would think, and based on my experience, being able to talk to other agencies in real time certainly would assist in that response.
Mr. Chairman, do I have time for one more question?
Yes.
Thank you. I know others have touched on this. One of the things that's been most baffling to the public has been the failure to fully secure this structure, which even to a layperson's uninformed eye clearly presents as a site from which an attack on the former president of this event could be mounted. And it had particular characteristics that made it even more of potential value to an attacker. Just walk us through one more time. Is there not an established doctrine or practice or checklist by which such sites are assessed for threat and determine whether or not to be within or without of the security perimeter?
So, Senator, controlling high ground is something that is a must for us whenever we go into a location.
Well, I know we're all eager for more information on why that task was not completed in this case. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Senator Ossoff. Senator Lee.
Why was President Trump allowed to take the stage at 6:02 p.m., exactly 17 minutes after multiple suspicious person reports were provided, complete with photos and information suggesting that the assailant had a rangefinder, something that ordinary people don't use in this kind of circumstance?
Senator, again, it was suspicion, not weapon, or there was never communication of that there was an individual with a gun or threat or other bad intentions.
How many suspicious person reports did you receive that day?
I'll get back to you on the exact number, but there were other individuals that came to the attention of law enforcement that day.
Would President Biden ever be allowed on stage under similar circumstances with an unresolved set of multiple suspicious person reports provided, including indicating that there was...
Law enforcement did not convey to local and state law enforcement did not convey to federal law enforcement the information that they had ascertained that would have been relevant in preventing loss of life and grievous bodily harm. Now, mind you, there is about, 1,526 drones in use currently, like nationwide, that we have publicly documented. Updated 72 after 2024. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I can get the methodology here. I posted the first part of that on the Uyatubia. So hi, if you're here on YouTube, maybe you came for part 2, and you got roped into the first one being heated, and this one seems all tepid. It's because I was getting all that sorted and getting resources. Of those resources.
The rangefinder involved.
Senator,
I'm a bitch.
I can tell you that a suspicious person on the outer perimeter with local law enforcement attempting to locate would happen, but I would need more information as far as...
So when they talk about who has access to what, Local law enforcement, we can see if they have drones. My point being, if you want to go check what the capabilities of local law enforcement are in conjunction with like this, and this is to the Senate folks, we're on it. I promise. I did okay. I'm actually I'm expanding them, the links.
Whether or not we would allow the president to go on or off.
It's not published yet, because it'll be later. I sourced though. I told people to join the Discord because I feel like if this is going to be continuing, we actually need to keep up with like our shit and I'll have shit to amend. And we should probably like be willing to do that. So that's a reason for me to like show the Discord is like in the event shit changes or I have shit to amend easier. That's like one of the reasons. That's the only reason I would show that shit. God damn it. I don't care anymore outside of it. It's sort of like, unless it's for like transparency, I don't give a shit.
Again, for us, it comes down to weapon, a potential threat. Is the individual carrying an IED? Is there?
And again, in case we forgot this, because I fucked this up, this is Secret Service. I kept misspeaking. Paul is FBI. I was initially misinterpreting it. I for some reason had it in my head that they were reversed, and I thought I kept calling Ronald Roland as well. It was such a fucking mess because I keep calling them by the wrong name, and then I also flipped their jobs. I'd had to go look. When they introduced themselves, I messed it up. That's my own fault. When they came back, when I realized it had been, like, the line of inquiry seemed pretty in line with, like, not their job, I ran and checked. I was initially wrong. I'm glad I found out.
A weapon? Is there some other factor that now ramps up our attention to let's
getting resources.
If there were 8 shell casings found next to the assailant's body, but he was neutralized after the first shot, where do those other shots come from? Where do the other shots go?
As far as the assailant's shooting?
Yes. So did the assailant get out 8 shots, or were there shell casings left from the day before? Where did they come from?
The shooter, Senator, we believe fired 8 rounds. We had the shooting reconstruction team go out there for a period of days and collect all that. So we have bullet holes, bullet fragmentation, all taken back, and we're still putting together the trajectory and ballistic analysis, although we do have fragments of the bullets, and bullets have been collected in the distance from the shooter's weapon.
Gotcha. It's my understanding there was a sniper team assigned to a window with complete overlook, complete view of the roof, the same rooftop, sloped rooftop where the shots were fired. It's also my understanding, according to some whistleblower accounts, that post was abandoned. What can you tell me about that? Why was it abandoned?
So I saw that from the colonel's testimony, sir, and it's something that I've asked and our mission assurance is getting to the bottom of. And there were two-man counter-sniper teams from the locals that were in that AGR building.
And so at some point they just left?
That
I'm picking on the
Senate. I don't have an
Senate.
answer for you on that, Senator, but it seems to me that if even one of them
I want to pick on the Senate. Hold
left,
on.
there should have been
How do
remaining some additional.
Hey, I need your help picking on the Senate. I'm gonna do my best on YouTube. I need your help with the rest. I'm not even kidding. I really do.
Eyes left in that building.
Yeah, that seems like something that maybe should be one of the very first questions you address. I'm actually surprised that you don't know that already, and I'd ask that you submit to us in writing what you learn as soon as you learn it. Will you commit to that?
Yes, sir.
What can you tell me about? Well, let me just state this way. Multiple requests were made by Trump's protective detail and by Trump's campaign team to the Secret Service for additional resources. I'm told that those were denied. And as I recall, the Secret Service spokesperson initially denied that such requests were made and denied. Why not tell the truth from the outset? What were they trying to do there?
So, Senator, I don't think there was any intention to mislead.
Seems like a pretty material fact, doesn't it?
I saw that report. Go ahead, sir.
Will you commit to me that you will submit to us in writing what requests were made by whom and to whom and when they were denied?
I will, sir.
Okay. Look, at the end of the day, we're looking at a situation in which, at a minimum, people knew that this guy had a gun at least 2 minutes before the shooting happened. I want to know what you can tell me about what happened during that final 2-minute period, where a whole bunch of people in the crowd saw and were shouting, "He's got a gun." During that 2-minute period, perhaps at the beginning of it, the local police started to climb the rooftop, and there was at least 30 seconds after which local police were able to personally observe the shooter with a gun, had the gun pointed at him. What happened during that time period, and why on earth was President Trump not removed from the stage at that moment?
So again, Senator, the reason why President Trump was not removed was, again, we did not have anything more than locals working an issue at the 3 o'clock. Wasn't determined as to whether or not it was the same individual or not, and there was no report.
The same individual as what?
the same suspicious individual.
Right, but we've left the category of suspicious individual at that point. You've got a guy with a gun on a rooftop 136 yards away from the stage. You know that he's got a gun at that point. What happened during that time period that didn't...
I'm up in our tags trying to prepare us for success for picking a fight with the Senate.
not result in President Trump is protected detail being notified of that and him immediately being removed from the situation.
Senator, what I will say, and then I'll turn it over to Deputy Director Abate. No information regarding a weapon on the roof was ever passed to our personnel.
Oh, that is your... That is dead-ass your YouTube. Okay.
Do you want to comment to that?
Senator, again, I believe that information, and this is probably something my colleague can expound on, information that was in law enforcement, local law enforcement channels, but did not cross over and make it to Secret Service awareness.
Senator, just to clarify the timeline, so the individual was first seen by law enforcement on the roof at about 6:08. We're still working to perfect the timeline based on the radio comms and all that. It wasn't until at 6:11:03 seconds the officer saw him and called out his arm. That was the first sighting where he had the rifle on the roof, and then
and that was relayed to the Secret Service Command Center.
My understanding is no, Secret Service, it was not relayed to them. It's a narrower time frame, though. It's probably about maybe up to half a minute between the time he's seen with the rifle and when the shots are fired.
But there's still time. At that point, if there were an open channel of communication in which they were able to tell him, he's got a gun, take him out. You could still take President Trump off the stage. You could have him duck. You could have the shooter neutralized. Do you not have a channel of communication by which they can say, gun, take him out?
So again, Senator, that information stayed in local channels and did not make it over to Secret Service.
Did they not consider that relevant? You're saying that the local police didn't consider that relevant enough to pass along to the Secret Service?
So I think that they were in the midst of dealing with a very critical situation, and they articulated that over the radio, as I understand it. However, it was never relayed over to us.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Rowe, can you put your first poster, your first demonstrative back up?
Please put A up, please.
Let's make sure everybody can see it. This is the photograph, I believe, that you took, your team took of the roof, the AGR roof. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so from this vantage point, as the law enforcement who are in those windows, as they look left, they should be able to see the shooter clearly there on the AGR second floor roof. My question is, why is there not a Secret Service counter sniper on that roof?
So, Senator, we're when we post up, our methodology is to look at things that can see in on our protectees, so that they can provide that coverage.
But why is there not a Secret Service counter sniper there with clear line of sight? That roof has a clear line of sight to the former president. Why didn't you put a Secret Service counter sniper there?
The Secret Service's counter sniper role is to neutralize those threats that are looking in on us from where the protectee is, not necessarily.
Maybe you might want to revise that protocol in light of what happened here.
They were protecting the principal, and I think the
principal got shot.
I understand that, sir.
So do you think you might want to revise the protocol? Let me ask you this. Who was the lead site agent who made the decision to leave the AGR building completely outside of the security perimeter? Who was that?
Senator, I cannot give you that name. This person is operational. They're still doing investigations. They're still doing protective visits.
Have they been relieved of duty?
Senator, they have not been relieved of duty.
By the way. Why have they not been relieved of duty?
They are still cooperating, not only being interviewed by the FBI, but also by our Office of Professional Responsibility. And we will let the facts of the mission assurance and any further investigations play out.
Isn't the fact that a former president was shot, that a good American is dead, that other Americans were critically wounded, isn't that enough mission failure for you to say that the person who decided that building should not be in the security perimeter probably ought to be stepped down?
Senator, I think you're using the word decided, and I think we need to allow the investigation play out to include.
So who did make the decision then? If it wasn't the lead site agent, who made the decision not to put that in security perimeter?
Senator, you're zeroing in on one particular agent. I want to find out exactly what was the entire decision process. So I think, I want to be neutral and make sure that we get to the bottom of it and interview everybody in order to determine if there was more than one person. I want to be, you're zeroing in on one person. So who did the word decide?
This is this person, by the way. Holly? Oh, Holly, we're coming. Yeah, I just decided we're going to call out Holly in the comments. Hey, if you have a Twitter, could you put this on blast? It publishes at 9 tonight. Thank you. Preesh. I even set it up for an instant premiere so we can, actually, you know, you can see that it exists there. I actually saved the changes. There. Now I have a chat to moderate on YouTube that I never usually do. Good. It's still rendering. Enjoy.
That building should not be in the security perimeter. Probably ought to be stepped down.
Senator, I think you're using the word decided, and I think we need to allow the investigation play out to include.
So who did make the decision then? If it wasn't the lead site agent, who made the decision not to put that security perimeter?
Senator, you're zeroing in on one particular agent. I want to find out exactly what was the entire decision process.
I'm like wicked transparent about our clickbait. It's always in the fucking title. Like, I swear to fuck, sorry, it's in the thumbnail. Like, if I do the clickbait in the thumbnail, it's in the thumbnail. Like, technically, do I feel like it's clickbait when referencing it in the title? No, I feel like it's very descriptive. Do I feel like it's clickbait in the fucking thumbnail? Yes. Yes, I do. It's contextual in the title, in the thumbnail. That is some clickbait ass bullshit. Tunes to the fucking max. And I think I now have to moderate the fucking YouTube chat. God damn it. Moderate activity. Fine. Timestamps. God damn it. Fuck it.
Process. So I think, I want to be neutral and make.
This is my own fault for setting it as a premiere. My bad.
Sure that we get to the bottom of it and interview everybody in order to determine if there was more than one person perhaps exercised bad judgment.
Well, sure. My question is, why don't you relieve everybody of duty who made bad judgment? So yeah, you're right. I am zeroing in on
pending investigation. Oh yeah, we're hi. I'll ask people who have Twitters to help me with this. Apparently, I'm pointing fingers at Holly with an attitude.
Somebody. I'm trying to find somebody who's accountable here.
And
so you're telling me that the person who made the decision not to include this in the perimeter has not been relieved of duty. What about the person who's in charge of the interoperability of radio frequencies between local law enforcement and Secret Service? Has that person been relieved of duty?
No, Senator, because interoperability is a challenge, is a greater challenge than just one person. On that day, we had a counterpart system. It failed.
As the person who made the decision to send Donald Trump on the stage knowing that you had a security situation, has that person been relieved of duty?
No, sir, they haven't.
Has the person who decided not to pull the former president off of stage when you knew that in your work the locals were working a serious security situation, has that person been relieved of duty?
No, sir. Again, I refer you back to my original answer that we are investigating this through a mission assurance, and as opposed to zeroing in on one.
What more do you need to investigate to know
exactly what
more do you need to investigate to know that there were critical enough failures that some individuals ought to be held accountable? I mean, what more do you need to know?
What I need to know is exactly what happened, and I need my investigators to do their job. And I cannot put my thumb on the scale. Otherwise,
what do you mean put your thumb on the
objective? You're asking me, Senator, to completely make a rush to judgment about somebody failing. I acknowledge this was a failure.
Is it not prima facie that somebody has failed? The former president was shot.
Sir, this could have been our Texas school book depository. I have lost sleep over that for the last 17 days.
Then
just like
fire
you have.
somebody.
And I will tell you, Senator, that I will not rush to judgment, that people will be held accountable, and I will do so with integrity and not rush to judgment and put people
unfairly persecuted.
Unfairly, sir. We have to be able to have a proper investigation.
My consistent bitchy self does not have any concern in bitching at the FBI. I'm not even bitching at the FBI and the fucking Secret Service. I'm bitching at the Senate. I think quite respectfully, while telling them that they're putting at risk the investigation that directly has to do with loss of life and grievous bodily harm, and I can't get behind that. But I still think I can talk shit. I think that's talking shit. I don't know how to... If that's me talking shit, I promise, like, y'all are safe. Ish. Then again, I tell people that I really enjoy to go fuck themselves and eat shit. Respectfully. So... I don't know. I don't know what to say. Be careful.
Into this, Senator.
You said earlier that you've got to make sure that your protocols
don't trust
are
people on the internet.
Protocol violation, people wouldn't be disciplined. I would just say to you, I don't really care that much about your protocols. I think if your protocols don't provide for the fact that when a former president is shot, when an American is killed, when other rally-goers, innocent people who just showed up on the day, when they are shot at and critically wounded, if that isn't a protocol violation...
Okay, again, I think that all of these things resonate to an extent with shit that I am also heartbroken about. My gripe is purely, this should be done in closed sessions. You'll see the senators that had the couth to say, and I quote, my other concerns are written in my letter to you. The appropriate way to deal with the security concerns that divulging would put at risk the operational security, which some might go so far as to say that the senators that are calling for this and posturing, pantomiming, and doing this for fucking purely the sake of actually just posturing are threatening national security, one could raise that in good fucking faith. Tell me that I'm fucking wrong and prove how fucking so.
Prima facie, you should revise your protocols. Senator, I think this is where you and I agree. This was a failure, and we will get to the bottom of it.
Well, I hope you're going to do something about it. Let me ask you something else.
Yeah, it can be a failure, but the way you're handling it, Honorable Senator, is indicative of the failure that you bring to your fucking position.
Real Clear Politics reports this morning that you were directly involved in denying additional security resources and personnel, including counter snipers, not just to this event, but over the last 2 years that President Trump's team repeatedly asked for these additional resources, and you personally were involved in denying them. Is that true?
Senator, as I stated earlier, that is not true.
So you never denied any resources to former President Trump's team?
No, not me. No, sir.
And you weren't involved in any of that? You were never involved in the decision making?
No, sir, I was not.
Let me ask you just one or two other things here quickly. Well, whistleblowers tell me that, in fact, law enforcement were stationed to be on that roof, and that law enforcement abandoned their post because it was too hot. Is that accurate?
Senator, I have heard that as well. They posted up inside. And I think moving forward, as I said earlier, we're going to ensure that state and local counter snipers are on roofs.
But do you know if someone was supposed to be on the roof? Do you know if someone was in fact? That's what the whistleblower tells me. That may or may not be accurate. Do you know that to be the fact? Was somebody posted to the roof, local law enforcement or whomever?
I do not know that to be a fact.
Well, can I ask you why you don't know that?
Again, Senator, we are looking at this, and they should have been on that roof. And the fact that they were in the building is something that I'm still trying to understand.
I just want to express my frustration, Director, that 17 days or whatever it's been, that whistleblowers are telling us more than you are, and you don't know. You haven't ascertained if there was supposed to be law enforcement on the...
Again, open investigation. There should be discretion with what's released to the public. I'd like to echo the earlier statements of the representative from the Secret Service. You shouldn't, in sentiment only, you shouldn't be revealing some things in public forum that have to do with operational security of an active investigation, especially one that involves grievous bodily harm and loss of life, especially after you've seen the events of what happened after the Zodiac killer, and that man was able to potentially that man was able to continue going on with their crimes because they were able to dispose of affective evidence. And you'd further remember that this was only brought up in public forum because elected representative, much like yourself, mayor, governor, senators, decided it would be a good idea to, out of turn, run their gums and put others at risk, without having a subject matter expert to prevent them from doing that.
The roof, that seems like a pretty basic fact. I'm also told that local law enforcement suppliers offered the Secret Service drones, and you declined them. Is that true?
So, Senator, one, I've been very transparent and forthcoming.
Your agency has not been transparent and forthcoming, so please, let's not go there.
I have been forthcoming, sir.
That remains to be seen. You've been on the job a few days. So far, you fired nobody. Now, the drones.
Thank you.
Were you offered drones?
Senator,
immediately threatening people with loss of employment isn't the way that you should go about this. You should actually do your thing appropriately and let the investigation play out before you leave with fucking dogma. Like, you should actually allow for a proper investigation before you yourself consistently contribute to harm. I'm trying to clear these out before they get back around so I can have this one dude just helping me and do this one person instead of the ad mobs. Okay, cool. I'm glad we had that talk. Operational security matters and the protection of people that are underserved and will underserve others. You need to protect the senators from the ignorance that they are trying to sow. Because one day it would come to term when all of our loved ones, as we love each other equally, will have to benefit from the systems we lay bare. And at some point, you have to understand that you need them to be able to protect them and not lead emotionally like this. Like, look at you now. You're leading with the fucking hodgepodge of bouncing between nonsense, just trying to hold a point, without being able to say why that point is potentially risking others. And you can't stop right now to see that. You've seen other senators present letters in front of you stating that they have other concerns written there. You've had other inquirers make queries and be responded to with it would be in violation of operational security to try to echo a sentiment. Honey, darling child, please stop.
There was an offer to fly a drone on that day.
And why did you deny
Oh my gosh.
Again, I think the ability of local law enforcement to provide an asset, we probably should have taken them up on it if it was offered.
Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rowe, thank you for being here. I agree with what you said at the outset that the individual Secret Service agents demonstrated remarkable personal courage, putting their bodies in between the line of sight of the shooter and the president. That being said, the bravery of the line agents is quite different from the decisions of Secret Service leadership. Secret Service leadership committed catastrophic security failures. Indeed, the worst security failures for the Secret Service since 1981, since the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. It is incumbent upon this committee to determine why those security failures happened. Just after the shooting, Secret Service put out an official statement from your spokesperson that says there's an untrue assertion that a member of the former president's team requested additional security resources, and that those were rebuffed. This is absolutely false. In fact, we added protective resources and technology and capabilities as part of the increased campaign travel tempo. Was this tweet accurate?
With respect to Butler, Pennsylvania, it is accurate, sir.
It is accurate that the Trump team had not asked for additional security and had not been rebuffed.
If you're talking about Butler, Pennsylvania, all assets requested were approved. If you're talking about the media reporting of assets requested, there were times when assets were
and had not been rebuffed.
Who put this there? Because it's like masked behind their shoulder. Is this the person who re-upped it or? Okay. There's an untrue assertion that the member of the former president's team, there's an, and I quote, there will be no witch hunting here. Thank you for my platform, by the way. There's an untrue assertion that a member of the former president's team requested additional security resources and that those were rebuffed. This is absolutely false. In fact, we added protective resources and technology and capabilities as a part of an increased campaign travel tempo. 5.3 million views is highlighted. The date and everything else is obscured. You have the person's name, photo, a check mark. This is all. You are missing data. They have tampered with this photo in the very ethos of the word. So you can go look this up and correlate it with, but identifiers are missing. That's not helpful. It says something 2024 that I'm able to see something 38 a.m. Something 35 a.m. Something 35 a.m. maybe? Something ending in a 5, I believe. Oh well, actually, I don't use Twitter or X or what the fuck ever. Is that how you do your shit? Is it intentionally, like, different to see in the bottom? Or is this, like...
If you're talking about Butler, Pennsylvania, all assets requested were approved. If you're talking about the media reporting of assets requested, there were times when assets were unavailable and not able to be filled, and those gaps were staffed with state and local law enforcement tactical assets.
So I'm reading from the Washington Post, July 20th, 2024. Secret Service said to have denied requests for more security at Trump events. The opening paragraph. Top officials of the U.S. Secret Service repeatedly denied requests for additional resources and personnel sought by Donald Trump's security detail in the 2 years leading up to his attempted assassination, according to 4 people familiar with the requests. Is that right, that repeatedly the Trump detail asked for more resources and repeatedly Secret Service leadership turned that down?
That is not accurate, Senator. Assets are requested. There's a process that is made. And
how many requests did the Trump team or the Trump detail ask for?
I can get you that number in a queue.
You don't know now.
So I can speak to the ones that reported in the Washington Post, and we can go through them if you like.
But you don't know how many requests there were.
In general, how many requests since 2021 that the former Trump detail has made a request for assets?
You've had 2 weeks. You had a spokesperson put something out that is false on its face. By the way, did you approve this statement when it went out?
I don't know if I did or didn't, Senator.
Has this spokesperson, is he still employed? Does he still have a job?
Employed,
so he lied on behalf of the Secret Service. He still has a job. Did your predecessor, the former director, did she approve?
The part that gets me is they just assume that this, like, they just start just, like, I wasn't looking up to see that this is about when I came in. So at this point, I was unsure that why they had the context for the statements they were making and assuming whom did this, I wasn't sure. So this is why we started it, because I came in there when they were streaming it initially, and I thought we were going to start over. This is about where I entered, actually. We're finally caught up. Isn't that cool?
Senator, our comms team, they send out statements. They do deconflict them and they put them out.
Did she approve this statement?
I don't know if she did or did not.
And you don't know if you did either?
I don't recall approving it, Senator.
Will you commit to provide this committee in writing every written request for additional resources from the Trump campaign or the Trump detail and every response from Secret Service?
Senator, I will commit to providing responses
and
getting you the information that you were seeking.
When they weren't.
Let me ask you something.
Up my
and
ass.
who makes the decision to deny those requests? Did you make that decision?
Which requests? Are you talking about the ones that were in the
Any of
Washington
them?
Post?
Yes.
The process, sir, is that a detail will make a request for either staffing, technical assets, that is handled between the field office and the detail. It goes up to a logistics office between our
Okay, so there's a bureaucracy. Is there a decision maker?
It's not a bureaucracy, Senator.
I could have been them dead if I didn't fuck up my entry.
Senator, it's a conversation. It's not just an absolute yay or nay.
So let me tell you what I believe. I believe that the Secret Service leadership made a political decision to deny these requests. And I think the Biden administration has been suffused with partisan politics. Did the same person who denied the request for additional security to President Trump also repeatedly deny the request?
So here's the thing. We don't know the answer to that. But there is a reason there is something called a fucking investigation that is supposed to be happening before you use your platform. Excuse me. Thank you for allowing me a platform, y'all, by the fucking way. But there is something you should do before you use your platform to cast such things with your privilege as well, which is wait for formal fucking investigations to take fucking place instead of stoking the fucking flames of bullshit and inequity. Fuck.
For security to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose father was murdered by an assassin and whose uncle was murdered by an assassin. Did the same person make that decision?
Senator, what I will tell you is that Secret Service agents are...
The inclusion of that doesn't make it less or more likely for it to be them or anyone else, necessarily. So all concerns have to be considered. So instead of trying to fucking call for an assumption that it's been partisan, all you really need to do, instead of making it more partisan, because that is not the fucking answer, is to just make sure they have fucking resources. And that there's a fucking framework that is audited, possibly by international fucking body, to ensure that it's in line for making sure that there's communication between local, state, and because federal law enforcement, because other nations have this consideration too. And we could audit these together and grow together as a fucking whole, instead of fucking cutting each other's fucking throats. Oh my fuck. Stop cutting at each other's throats. It's not appropriate. No.
Are not political.
Okay, you're not answering my question. But you know what? Leadership appointed by the president, is political. I have a simple question, yes or no. Did the same person deny the Trump request that also denied the RFK request? That's a yes or no question.
Senator, that is not a yes or no question. One, there was a process for a candidate nominee to receive
would have been
protection.
dead if I didn't fuck up.
Does the buck stop
bipartisan process that the Hill
It's a bicameral, bipartisan process. What camera?
For a candidate,
you are not a Congress. You don't have a camera.
Mr. Kennedy submitted a request that was referred over to the CPAC.
Okay, you're refusing to answer the question. Let me ask this, because the failures on that day were catastrophic. By the way, is it true that on the day of the Butler event that Secret Service transferred agent for President Trump to the First Lady?
No, sir, that's not true.
That's been widely reported.
It's not true. There was one airport agent that actually went on the manpower request for the Trump detail. They handled the arrival at the airport.
What was the relative size of the Trump detail compared to the detail that is assigned to the President or the First Lady?
Senator, the former president travels with a full shift, just like the president.
What's so the exact same size? Is that your testimony that President Trump has the same size detail that President Biden has?
On the day of the Butler, the agents surrounding him, it is the...
As I will never find peace or calm when there is harm being done to others, I understand being fervorously upset that someone's harmed. I get that so very well. But I don't understand you compromising the continuation of the safety for the rest of us because you're pissed. Think holistically, not in the moment. Actually see it for what it is. Stop reacting. Stop pantomiming posturing for a camera. Stop placating the populace while posturing, and instead do your fucking job. We'll like you more if you do your job than if you placate and pantomime.
same number of agents surrounding the president today. There is a difference between a sitting president who also not only...
Hold on, you're using president in a way that is not clear. Is it your testimony that in Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump had the same number of agents protecting him that Joe Biden has at a comparable event?
I'm telling you the shift, the close protection shift surrounding. That's
yes
what you asked me, Senator, and I'm trying to answer it.
You are not answering it. Is it the same number of agents or not?
Senator, there is a difference between the sitting president of the United States.
Then what's the difference?
The difference?
2x, 3x, 5x,
National
10x?
Command Authority to launch a nuclear strike.
I'm
There are
not
other assets.
How many more
travel
agents?
with the president that
Sir,
the former president will
you are
not get.
refusing to
But
answer
the number of Secret Service agents
stop interrupting.
protecting him.
Stop interrupting me.
Go ahead,
You are
Senator.
refusing to answer clear and direct questions. I am asking the relative difference in the number of agents between those assigned to Donald Trump and those assigned to Joe Biden. I'm not asking why you assign more to Joe Biden. I'm asking, is the difference, is it 2x? Is it 3x? Is it 5x? Is it 10x?
Senator, I will get you that number so you can see it with your own eyes.
Senator Marshall, you're recognized for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Rowe, there was probably 10 buildings within sniper range of President Trump on that afternoon. Why was the building being used by the sniper not in the security zone?
That's a question that I've asked, Senator. There was a decision that we were going to construct a site and it was going to maintain within the Butler Farm site, Butler Farm Show site. That building, that AGR, was right on the curtilage of our outer perimeter.
Hi.
And it's something that I, again, having been there and walked it, I had a hard time understanding.
So there's no protocol that says anything within 300, 500 yards, direct line of the president, should be in or out of the security zone. There's not a protocol that describes that.
So, Senator, what we try to do is we try to either control the high ground or mitigate line of sight concerns.
Okay. You've stated that on multiple occasions, President Trump's team was denied more of a detail, more assets. Who denies that? Who's the person that denies that, generally speaking?
The fucking F-syllable. I heard it. Mr. Kennedy, unshackle yourself. Say who in the fuck. Let it the fuck. Your honorable senator, you can say fuck. You're not saying someone should fuck themselves or calling them a fuck. You're just saying who in the fuck. Like, that's fine. Who in the flippity fuck shit fist of a fuck day and a shit twiddle fucking brought us here to D? This bitch. Now, watching Senate has always been a lot to me. Like, Senate hearings and all of fucking Congress on C-SPAN, for instance, by the way, has always felt a lot like Ricky Lake for me. And honestly, it used to be that they would hurt the, like, they used to do violence to each other in session, okay? So this is an improvement. And that was during the Civil War. So honestly, as that being one of the catalysts for it, you know, I can see why that was like not a, that's why we can say we're glad there's no violence, first off, because that would be downhill, not helpful, and not for good social outcomes. We're glad when they're kind to each other. We fucking like that more. It's more appropriate. Anywho's. Howdy. Howdy ho.
Senator, there's a process. Again, there's a conversation had with the details.
There's got to be a bus stop. There's got to be someone. Who is the person? Is it a level within the DC agency? Is it someone in the Pittsburgh office? Who denies this?
It has nothing to do with the Pittsburgh office, sir. It is a conversation between not only the detail, the field office, but also...
I don't want to know the conversation. I want to know who makes the decision.
The decision, sir, is it's our process between the Office of Protective Operations and the Office of Investigations.
Is there a title for this position?
It is called we affectionately call it the War Room, and it's where all of our logistics files into.
So it's a room that makes the decision.
It is a staffing and assignments officer.
Okay. Is the Secret Service required to do a briefing with all entities of law enforcement involved in the event of the days leading up to the event and the day of the event?
We do a police meeting, sir, where we start the...
So it's required. Is it required? Is it part of your standard operating procedure?
The police meeting is what initiates the advance, and that is what is required.
Oops, I was trying to skip it.
Was this meeting held on that day?
I mean, I kind of did.
It took place on the days prior to that.
Kind of.
Do you have documents of that meeting would actually happen?
Oh, fuck.
If we do, sir, I will get them to you.
But you're saying that it did not happen on the day of the event.
So I think what you're
a rough definition of kind
is a
of.
briefing that the state and locals would have done.
No, I keep trying to skip the fire by like just I keep trying to skip that combat by skipping the fire. And I feel like there's probably a better place to do that, like here-ish, where it kind of comes in closer, and it makes like a little V that you can meet on both sides, and then right into the water. I feel like that's what I'd want to do. And then I can just hop right over, boop into here, not die, trying to get to it. Oops. Please? Thank you. Anywho's, here you go.
Themselves. We did a briefing with our own folks. They briefed.
When did you,
Here,
so
have Tia
did your
Vegcom's
people meet with local
newspaper.
law enforcement the day
Now
of
hush
the
up.
assassination attempt?
Yes.
Okay, and you realize that the local law enforcement says no, that that meeting never happened, and that's why we need to get these people in to talk to us, and this is why the FBI needs to be speaking up sooner than later and say that meeting did or didn't happen. Surely there's some type of documentation of that meeting one way or the other. Is there documentation of that meeting?
So, Senator, I can tell you that our what you're referring to is the counter sniper team seconded to Butler ESU. Our personnel met with the team lead from Butler ESU, and they discussed areas of concern, areas of responsibility, and that did in fact happen at the site on that day.
Director, I think you would agree with me that there were multiple individual and institutional failures the day of this assassination attempt. You have a $3 billion budget, you're still 2,000 employees short, and in 2022, the Secret Service had a 48% departure rate. That tells me you either have a cultural problem or just gross incompetence. Which one is it?
So, Senator, I would challenge that 48% departure rate. Let me get you some statistics that we have. It is not 48%.
But go back to the multiple failures that we saw on an individual basis as long as systemic. I think it proves that there's either incompetence or some type of a cultural problem within the SS.
So, Senator, I know you're not calling our workforce incompetent, and I know we do not have a cultural problem. If anything, we are dedicated to making sure that we don't have mission failure. And let me get you the hiring numbers that we have, because I think you will actually see that, no, we've actually done very well fairly recently. We're trying to make sure that we have the numbers that we need. Of course, we need more people. Everybody does. But let me get you those numbers, and I think let your own eyes.
Would you also disagree with me when it's reported that almost 50% of the rank and file officers don't trust leadership within the Secret Service?
I love this.
Senator, I think it's the right of every worker to talk
Could it
bad
trigger
about
on
their
this?
Thank you.
Oh, shit.
Senator Hirono, you're
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clearly, there is a lot that the Secret Service has to answer for in this stunning security failure. But I do want to follow up on Mr. Abate's testimony that an online profile of the shooter may have been found, and you said it contains anti-Semitic and anti-immigrant postings. Can you?
Yeah, no, this should not be out in public right now. I'm sorry, I'm taking the staunch stance that if it is, you think it is, and then you're making a statement like this, you will not see a good end from directly stoking this when you are not certain. Like, I am not sorry to say, unless you are positive, I need you to shut the fuck up. Racialism and fucking erasure in the States is rampant. If you say that, you unnecessarily and without considering it, do put a target on others. Not in the public hearing. Not in the public hearing. Write it in your fucking letter. Send that in a letter. I say that because I care, and I say that because I'd be terrified to see anyone fucking terrified. Holy shit. The speculation needs to be squashed. Like, it's a fucking investigation involving grievous bodily harm and loss of fucking life. Take it with respect. Wait till you're sure.
Have you found anything further in the shooter's profile?
Senator, this was just discovered, as I mentioned, and it's being closely analyzed right now. We need to verify that it is, in fact, that it belonged to the now deceased shooter and that he made these comments. So that's why I felt it important in the interest of transparency to share that here, but add the caveat that we still have a lot of work to do, which we're working on quickly to determine that. It's of importance.
Paul. 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 Excuse me, Paul. 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 Excuse me. Paul. 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 I like your page more. Like, you would never catch me with a photo of my ass up on some shit. Cousin, like, I know I have a photo because I got a Twitch, okay? Fucking get off my hypocrisy for a minute. You wouldn't catch me with a photo of me like that on the internet, all like, but, like, respect that you can pull it together, because I would be fucking, I would pull this shit and be like, no, I'd be worse. They'd pull this and I'd be like, no, just last name. Yeah, nah, just last initial. Just last initial. Just last initial. Yeah, let them get me with executive order. Fuck it, I don't care. Fuck them all. They can like talk to me when they need to. They can like make an order to talk to me. I don't fucking care. Fuck this shit. I get that they don't like. I get that they have facility to like mitigate the security concerns that I have, but it's just like perspective wise, I could not imagine putting myself in that. Like, I could not imagine what they do if I didn't. Like, that's wild. Like, I guess like here alone is when I would be like, oh, that's brave of you. Like, that's pretty chill. Good on y'all, I guess. Like, y'all are trying. Like, y'all are answering. You're fielding questions that should be asked to the CIA and NSA. That's wicked. And you're not even FBI. And you are FBI, and you've been just chilling. You've been fucked with. I don't like how they're treating you. Like, I find it actually inappropriate. Like, I am so sorry.
I think because if it is in fact the shooter that posted these comments, it's the first real indication where he's expressing what are described as extremist views and talking about political violence.
I take it that once you determine that it was in fact the shooter who posted these kinds of comments, that you will let the public know as well as this committee?
Absolutely, Senator.
I think, in fact, it is very important that many of the perpetrators of mass shootings, etc., have these kinds of postings online that are very anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic, anti-everything. And it is really important as we determine the kind of profile for many of these shooters that we understand how critical it is that we are careful, how critically important it is that people are careful about what they're posting online, the misinformation, disinformation, everything.
What we release in Senate hearings, how we phrase it in Senate hearings. Yeah, that too. That can also contribute to misinformation, disinformation, to public stigmatization, and to the to people jeopardizing ongoing investigations. Agree, 100%.
Else along those lines. This is for Mr. Abate once again. What kind of firearm, what kind of weapon did Crooks use in the assassination attempt?
This was an AR-15 style rifle manufactured by a company named Panther Arms.
And once again, many of the persons involved in these kinds of mass shootings use this particular kind of weapon. We know from similar hearings that the Judiciary Committee has had that we are a nation awash in guns. In your view, shouldn't we be doing more to prevent the easy accessibility of these kinds of firearms in our country?
Senator, we're focused on collecting
red flag laws. Let's go.
Comment on something like that.
Well, I know that there is a
it's out of the scope of this hearing
about firearms and all of that, and I should think that as a law enforcement person that you probably have.
Okay, no, this is an extreme point of posturing. Like, it is well executed, though I am going to call it out for what it is. It is irrelevant to the fucking points at hand. It is posturing, and though it is a valid fucking point, I think we can all state that red flag laws are beneficial. That has like consistently been echoed by every fucking body, regardless of what you might prejudicely preconceive. I'm fairly sure the fucking majority of us living on this fucking planet are in preference of more people being more okay more often by having nationalized health care so everyone can talk to a fucking goddamn I want it to be as compulsory as taking your children to the dentist. Make sure they have fucking access to therapy because it's 2024. We know this world isn't made for any of us to fucking deal with it alone. We need help with fucking dealing with it. All of us. So don't fucking pretend otherwise. Just actually act appropriately. You're a fucking alleged leader of people. Like, what are y'all gonna do? Lead me to an early grave because I screamed so much I fucking blustered and busted like the collective nuts of everyone who've always just wanted to hear me fucking pop off and get drowned in the resultant fucking wash? Please don't.
Some opinions along those lines, but you don't want to articulate what to many people in our country. There's a causal factor here, the easy accessibility of guns, and I want to ask that question because I think it's important that
it should be asked. Very good points to have. Though, venue, I call into question the venue. Though, again, that's a very early thing to say. They could sew this together in such a way that we are admiring it for the rest of our lives. By the way, don't forget.
The American people understand that, you know, we are a nation that is awash in guns, and we have more mass shootings than any other country, and yet we have been unable to pass the kind of...
Okay, there's the fucking Bailey, where's the Mott? Like, we've got the fucking sacrificial shit. Where's the thing? Where's the bullshit?
Laws that prevent these kinds of firearms to be easily available that we have not...
No, we've got our castle. Where is the town we're going to sacrifice? Come on, spit.
Not done enough to promote gun safety in our country. And Mr. Chairman, I wanted to articulate that as the elephant in the room that nobody wants to address, including apparently our law enforcement officers.
Okay, valid, because here's the thing. This is a question that needs to be fucking addressed. Writ large. It never happens enough. Ever. Like, yeah, I can be all like, this doesn't feel like the right venue, but every time the appropriate venue is used, it's shut down and squatted on. It's a valid approach. It is respectable too, though I am griping because I also don't think it's an appropriate place to.
I am disappointed in that, but obviously we have a work to do to create a much safer environment and prevent persons who have these kinds of ideological perspectives and
widespread, easy access to AR-15 military-style rifles. While we rely on the Secret Service to protect elected officials, we must acknowledge the unique challenges they face in light of the proliferation of weapons of war on our street. Pennsylvania, like many states, allows individuals to openly carry a loaded rifle without a permit. To make matters worse, assault rifles can easily be purchased from unlicensed dealers without a background check because of dangerous loopholes in our gun laws. The same kind of firearm has been used to carry out mass shootings in Newtown, Uvalde, Las Vegas, and Highland Park, Illinois, killing dozens of children and adults and injuring many more. Looking across this dais, I recognize we have our differences on many issues. But when it comes to the protection of the president and presidential candidates, we should stand united. We know that protecting our elected...
Like, hold on. Let's unpack that statement. The president is elected of the people by the people. So the protection of the people, because it shouldn't just be that of the president. The same fucking system should be able to work cleanly and smoothly in the protection of everyone equally. But kind of, I see what you're getting at, but be more specific. Or else I'll fucking actually interrupt you every 2 seconds.
Officials is essential to a functioning democracy. I hope...
Wait, Mr. Durbin, weren't you talking about fucking breaking crypto earlier? Cousin, don't you commit me with this timidness now?
This hearing can be an example of how we will work together on a bipartisan basis.
Not if you mention breaking cryptography, if, like, again, no, not actually. Excluding that, well carried, but you need to inform yourself on how these systems work, and you need a subject matter expert in every public policy you fucking form, and it needs to be vetted and backed by international body. You need to have assessments against your assessors vetted and backed by international body. You need to stop this isolationism, and you need to fucking defer to, I hate to put it so blasely, but to be a bit sharp, your betters.
To not only understand the shocking event, but to ensure it never happens again. We must do this without the incendiary language and conspiracy mongering that too often does.
Meanwhile, me being an asshole. Thank you, Mr. Durbin. Sorry for being an asshole.
Dominates our political discourse today.
Maybe.
Ongoing investigations by the Secret Service
I still feel like a dickhead.
But Congress, the victims' families, and the American people deserve...
I can accept that I was a dickhead.
Transparency and
my points stand, but my conduct of myself could have gone for better.
Accountability now. I'll now turn to my partner on the Judiciary Committee, Ranking Member Lindsey Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several of us from the military have a military background. If this happened in the military, a lot of people would be fired. And if a lot of people are not fired, the system failed yet again. Having said that, the people who are brave and
Lindsay. Stop the moralization. Just get to the fucking brass tacks and bedpost, my guy. Just fucking get off it. You came here to say something. Stop the pantomiming and spit.
Jumped on the stage to protect the president needs to be applauded. We need to learn what happened.
Oy, fucking vey.
Somebody's got to be fired.
No.
Nothing's going to change until somebody
Investigations need to happen. No, you fucking reactionary. You need an investigation to transpire. Like what? What kind of business over bourgeois bullshit do you live in where you think firing the help is the appropriate fucking answer to a managerial fuck? And it isn't necessarily that you are the managers, by the way, you fuck. You allocate the fucking coffers. You've created the system in which fucking exsanguinates itself to fucking barely survive. So maybe fuck off for a minute. Oi, fucking vey, stop calling for people to lose their jobs. That's not the first fucking place you go. Start with fucking decency. Start with fucking compassion. Do you not understand what it's fucking like in the fucking world? Don't start there. Actually show that you are the people. Stop acting above your station. Stop acting like you're not the people. Stop acting like you're better in that capacity. Work for people to grow and fucking not fuck up again. Yes, there is loss of life and grievous bodily harm to others. These things are never O-fucking-K. But nor is calling for a loss of fucking well-being and fucking job and fucking security of home. So first the fuck off, let the fucking investigation transpire. Stop calling for firing before you let the investigation transpire. This is obscure. What the fuck is wrong with that fucking attitude? Why do you fucking go from, like, saying you're gonna represent the people to trying to get people fired before an investigation? In which fucking world does you fucking make sense where you can go about pantomiming saying you think it's appropriate to do any of these other things while not letting investigations happen properly? What else do you let happen outside of the purview of a fucking formal investigation? What do you think is appropriate to do before you or investigate or without investigating? What the fuck do you do with your time? What is your history like?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's the practice of the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee to swear in witnesses. So if our two witnesses could please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you will give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may be seated.
I don't worship your God, but I won't lie because my honor means more than my life.
Our first witness is Ronald Rove, Jr. Mr. Rove is currently the acting director of the United States Secret Service. Prior to this role, acting director Rove was the 23rd deputy director of the Secret Service. He has had a distinguished 25-year career in the Secret Service, from coordinating major security operations to collaborating with other government and law enforcement agencies.
It's equivalent because to them their God means more than their life, and to me my honor means more than my life, so it's the same fucking thing.
Additionally, he has served as the Chief of Staff to the Director, as Deputy Assistant Director for the Office of Protective Operations, and as Deputy Assistant Director for the Office of Intergovernmental and Legislative Affairs. Mr. Director, thank you for appearing before this committee today. You are now recognized for your opening statement.
Good morning, Chairman Peters, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Paul, Ranking Member Graham, and distinguished members of the committees. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. A critical part of the Secret Service mission is protecting our nation's current and former government leaders. The attempted assassination of former President Donald J. Trump on Saturday, July 13th, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a failure on multiple levels. I join you and all Americans in condemning the horrific assault on former President Trump. Corey Comparator.
I join every fucking earthling, I presume, in saying we can always condemn grievous bodily harm and loss of fucking life. No duh, no shit. Obviously, cousin.
James Copenhaver and David Dutch. And I extend my deepest sympathies to the Comparator family.
Like, none of us should...
For Mr. Copenhaver and Mr.
I understand that some people do revel in it, but I don't imagine that people revel in it, because that sounds so fucking unbelievably wild. I just can't imagine that fucking world. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Dutch's continued recovery. Before I begin, though, I want to commend the heroic actions of the men and women of the United States Secret Service on July 13th.
Range.
Our special agents shielded the former president with their bodies while shots were still being fired. Selflessly, willing to make the ultimate sacrifice without hesitation. I am extremely proud of these actions and those taken by the counter-sniper team to neutralize the threat that prevented further loss of life. And I applaud the actions of our tactical teams that responded so quickly. I would also like to express my gratitude to our federal, state, and local partners. We rely on these critical relationships, which have developed over decades of daily collaboration to secure protective events and conduct criminal investigations.
Oh my gosh, the burn makes me fucking...
As you're aware, there are multiple ongoing investigations of the attack and the security failures that occurred that day.
The burn counts.
I pledge my full support to those inquiries so the Secret Service,
I was curious about that.
And the American people have a thorough and complete understanding of what happened leading up to and during July 13th. I will not wait for the results of those findings to assess where we failed that day. I have taken and will continue to take immediate steps to ensure we do not repeat those failures. Since my appointment as the acting director 1 week ago, I identified gaps in our security on July 13th and have implemented corrective actions. One of my first actions as acting director was traveling to the...
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, this is a private thing. This is a thing that needs to take place as an investigation and with human resources, and not the American people in a galvanized state fucking attacking people fucking on moralized bullshit and pantomiming and pageantry. Like, I am sorry, this is wickedly inappropriate. All the senators that said that they would bring this up in a letter, I appreciate you. To those who decided it would be a good idea to filibuster pantomiming and fucking pretending to give a shit. Like, I see you. You are not honoring the lost lives. You are only honoring your ego. I see you, my loves, and I still love you, but you are fucking up. Holy shit.
The Butler Farm Show site to better understand how our protection failed. I went to the roof of the AGR building where the assailant fired shots, and I laid in a prone position to evaluate his line of sight. What I saw made me ashamed. As a career law enforcement officer and a 25-year veteran with the Secret Service, I cannot defend why that roof was not better secured. To prevent similar lapses from occurring in the future, I directed our personnel to ensure every event site security plan is thoroughly vetted by multiple experienced supervisors before it is implemented. It is clear to me that other protective enhancements could have strengthened our security at the Butler event. As such, I have directed the expanded use.
And again, no loss of life is ever appropriate in my eyes, and no grievous bodily harm will ever be appropriate in my eyes. So when I say the phrase post-mortem, that is in regard to, and to be very fucking succinct and accurate, investigations done internally to facilitate avoiding the same foul outcomes again. So these are the kind of determinations you should have after these events, and it's been a long time in our governance that we've been really not the best at admitting fault, growing, and striving for better. To see it now is good. So I want to again point out the way that Ronald is communicating what they are trying to get across and preserve the operational security of ongoing investigations while being inappropriately addressed by Senate members ad nauseum is respectable. Oh shit. I forgot. I can't post the video as it is. I need to actually delay it. I'm so sorry. I need to re-upload it probably. Because I need to mix the fucking audio channels appropriately. I forgot. So you get to like have it be like 2 minutes of effortfulness. I know there's gonna be the biggest disconnect.
Of unmanned aerial systems at protective sites to help detect threats on roofs and other elevated threats. I've also directed resources to facilitate our protective site communications, particularly our communications with our state and local partners. In addition, I've instructed the asset request for Secret Service protective details to be approved expeditiously, and I've ordered the maximum use of requested personnel at protective sites to address this heightened security environment. I've heard your calls for accountability, and I take them very seriously. And given the magnitude of this failure, the Secret Service's Office of Professional Responsibility is reviewing the actions and decision-making of Secret Service personnel in the lead-up to and on the day of the attack. If this investigation reveals that Secret Service employees violated agency protocols, those employees will be held accountable to our disciplinary process. With respect to congressional investigations and requests for information, I instructed my staff to provide full cooperation and respond expeditiously on a continuing basis to ensure you have the information you need to conduct your critical oversight. In my testimony before you today,
I know. This is apparently me. I'm a spinny booper.
And I take them very seriously. And given the magnitude of on the day of the attack.
We're occasionally a React channel, honey. You know this. Just in the most silly runabout way. Instant like a goober. This was early play. Yeah, okay, cool. It's that I didn't have the channels mixed appropriately, and that was really gonna irk me, and I didn't realize that for that whole time of that 2 hours. So, whatever. We got it. There's nothing I need to change. Like, there's nothing I'm not willing to eat, because I corrected it in myself what I think is appropriate to fucking intercept and stop myself from blathering on about inaccurately. So I'm chill with that. Like, I'm okay with that. As long as I don't let myself yammer about something that's not helpful. Like, as long as there's, like, an actual not causing problem, then I'm good. What are we gonna name this? I guess we're gonna name it fucking Silly Booper. I can name it whatever I want. Silly Booper's a valid fucking name for a file. What do you want from me? Silly Booper. That's what it's gonna be. Okay. Actually, edit. I can have the description and title done. I don't have to do anything else. That's good. Update job. Render all. Bless. I'd have to mix the audio to the right channel. I'll leave it to complete, and if it does it itself and it mixes channel 1 and 2 and 3 appropriately on YouTube, then that's great. But I don't think it does, so I have to go back and do that. So I'm kind of sorry.
Provide details on the Secret Service's advanced security planning for the Butler Farm Show site. Facts as we know them regarding the incident itself, known breakdowns in executing the security plan, and corrective actions that the agency is taking to ensure that nothing like this happens again. But I do not believe that inadequate time to plan for this event was a factor in the failure. As you saw in my written statement, I am prepared to provide an overview of the security planning leading up to and during the July 13th attack. However, I would like to point out that based on what I know right now, neither the Secret Service counter-sniper teams nor
Can I make a very immature joke about how I'm so pro-life you'll never see me ever happy about the loss of life or even harm ever to anyone ever? Can we see that this is like an honest attempt at both ironic humor as well as a true statement of like, okay, cool. I love you all.
Members of the former president's security detail had any knowledge that there was a man on the roof of the ATR building with a firearm. It is my understanding those personnel were not aware the assailant had a firearm until they heard gunshots. Prior to that, they were operating with the knowledge that local law enforcement was working an issue of a suspicious individual prior to the shots being fired. I regret that information was not passed to Congress and the public sooner with greater frequency. And I fear this lack of information has given rise to multiple false and dangerous conspiracy theories about what took place that day. And I want to debunk these theories. Let me address one conspiracy directly. The Secret Service counter-sniper neutralized the assailant within seconds after the assailant fired his weapon. That counter-sniper had full discretion to use deadly force to stop an attacker and did not need to seek authorization to fire. I am immensely proud of the selfless dedication of our employees to the mission. Every day, across the globe, the men and women answer the call to protect our nation's leaders, and the standard is no fail for a reason. During our current high operational tempo, I want and I need to ensure that the Secret Service workforce are uplifted so they can focus on carrying out the mission. They have my full support, and I'm confident in their abilities to ensure the safety and security of the people we protect. They are worthy of trust and confidence, and they deserve your support as well as the support of the American people. Chairman Peters, Chairman Durbin, Ranking Member Paul, Ranking Member Graham, and members of the committees, thank you for the opportunity to testify at this joint hearing. I will submit the remainder of my statement for the record, and I will answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Our second witness is Paul Abate. Mr. Abate is the Deputy Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation at the Department of Justice. In this role, Deputy Director Abate...
Is it... Hold on. I'm gonna restart voice meter. It's not voice meter, it's only their audio, but I'm still gonna check. Okay.
It oversees all FBI domestic and
It's
international...
their audio, honey. I'm sorry. Like, I don't even know if the stream is still up. We can go check. It's a restream. It's not like active.
And intelligence activities.
I'm here for
Prior to
this.
his appointment as Deputy Director, he has had a distinguished 3 decades within the FBI leading counterterrorism efforts, and most recently as the Associate Deputy Director of the FBI, where he's responsible for the management of all FBI personnel, budget, administration, as well as infrastructure. Mr. Abate, thank you for appearing before the committee here today. You are recognized for your opening remarks.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chairman Peters and Durbin, ranking members Paul and Graham, and distinguished members of the committee. It is a privilege to appear before you today to discuss the FBI's investigation of the attempted assassination of former President Trump on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. Before going further, I want to again offer my and our condolences to the victims of this heinous attack, to the family and loved ones of heroic firefighter and father Corey Comparator, to Mr. Dutch, to Mr. Koppenhaber, who continue to recover, and to former President Trump, who was also struck by a bullet fired from the shooter's rifle. Our thoughts and prayers are...
Well, this is the part that's supposed to be on record. There was alleged suppression of it. I didn't find out if that was valid.
...with each of them and their families and loved ones. Within minutes of the attack, the FBI field office in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, received notification of the assassination attempt and responded to the scene immediately with a surge of resources, quickly moving forward on the investigation. From the outset, the FBI has been investigating this attack as an assassination attempt and an act of domestic terrorism. Our team continues to conduct a full, thorough, and objective investigation, and will continue to follow all leads and avenues of investigation to logical conclusion, leaving no stone unturned.
Walk back.
While it's not typical to provide details of an ongoing investigation, this, as we all know, is an extraordinarily tragic set of circumstances of the utmost national importance, making it essential to inform the American public and Congress what is known right now with full transparency. The investigation remains focused, of course, on determining motive, identifying any potential co-conspirators or others with knowledge of the attack, and building out a timeline of shooter Thomas Crook's actions in advance of and during the attack. Thus far, though absolutely nothing has been ruled out, the investigation has not identified a motive, nor any co-conspirators or others with advanced knowledge. To date, the FBI team has conducted more than 460 interviews, executed search warrants, including at the shooter's residence, and seized electronic media to include phones, laptops, hard drives, and thumb drives. Legal process has been issued to dozens of companies, and we received more than 2,000 tips from the public. The full resources of the FBI have been brought to bear in furtherance of the investigation. Agents, analysts, professional staff, experts. I've personally visited the site of this horrific attack and seen firsthand the work of FBI Pittsburgh and our partners on the front line, and want to thank all involved for their ongoing and tireless efforts to get the answers that we need and to deliver justice. Specialized resources deployed included evidence response teams, victim services specialists, laboratory and operational technology division resources to process physical and digital evidence, a shooting reconstruction team. Additionally, our explosive